Chapter 11:27. Bam! In terms of strength, Han Fei was no longer someone that ordinary junior law enforcers could compete with. Therefore, after only 100 strikes, the ape was sent flying by Han Fei. Ho! Our king must have taught this guy the 3,000 devil cudgel in advance. Our king is too ruthless. He wants to use this human kid to attack us. This kid is too strong, beyond the strength that a junior law enforcer should have. Get out of the way, let me do it. What do you mean? Let's go together. The monkeys who had been watching the fun just now, seeing that Han Fei won easily, couldn't bear it. The Beast King was grinning when he saw a group of law enforcer monkeys all pounce on him. The sky was full of cudgel shadows from all directions. Seeing this, Han Fei immediately activated the devil change technique, and the cudgel in his hand turned into a phantom. Clang, clang, clanged. God knew how many attacks Han Fei had blocked in that instant. Han Fei's footwork had been exerted to the extreme. As a result, in an instant, he was hit by countless cudgel shadows. An ape shouted, "This human's physique is actually so strong. Use more strength." Hearing this, Han Fei immediately took a deep breath. Energy gathered from all directions, the war body was activated, and a layer of red light appeared on the surface of his body. It was said that the cudgel could sweep a large area. However, in this case, that didn't exist. If it were an ordinary person, it might only take 1 second to be beaten silly. Han Fei didn't have time to attack at all, so he could only attack faster and faster. In the end, Han Fei just instinctively tried to resist. After a few minutes, Han Fei's war body was broken. His head was full of bumps and his body was full of pain. At this moment, a large group of monkeys lazily became onlookers. A big ape shouted, "Human, did you see that? This is the power of the 3,000 devil cudgel of the Beast King Valley." Han Fei cast 2 divine healing techniques on himself, and after a few minutes, he got up, a little annoyed. "You guys, there are too many of you." A little monkey laughed in the tree and fell from the tree. A big ape roared, "This is how we fight in the Beast King Valley. Who asked you to be alone? In any case, you've lost." A monkey jeered, you lost. To these monkeys from the Beast King Valley, there was no such thing as a duel. If they fought one-on-one with them every day, then how many of the beasts in the 100,000 mountains would be able to crush them? The Monkey King's 3,000 strikes was powerful, but it was only a technique. If creatures like the thunder leopard or the 6-tailed white fox were to make a move, they might not even be able to swing their staffs before they were ambushed. Han Fei was silly. Even if he was angry, he would only feel depressed. So, when he recovered a little, he picked up the stick and said, again. After 100 minutes, Han Fei lay down again. Just like that, the cycle repeated itself. The Beast King didn't care. He didn't expect these monkeys to fight Han Fei one-on-one. The reason why it was a one-on-one fight for the first time was that the monkeys were afraid that Han Fei would be killed. But after a comparison, they realized that Han Fei's physique was strong, his strength was fierce, and he could hit people hard. What scruples did he have? The Beast King couldn't help but shake his head. "I told you to walk out of Beast King Valley, not to fight with a group of monkeys." 7 days later, Han Fei was finally able to hold on for 5 minutes under the attacks of the monkeys. However, his silly brain was enlightened. He seemed to find that even if he exerted his strength to the extreme, it seemed that he couldn't withstand the attacks of so many monkeys. Even some explorer-level monkeys would sneak up and hit him a few times. This group of monkeys was not fighting at all. They were purely playing. It just so happened that Han Fei, with his stubborn character, didn't run away. If the monkeys didn't play with him, who would they play with? It was also on this day that Han Fei began to run away. However, the reason why he ran away was that he wanted to learn the soul-suppressing roar of beasts first, and then come back to fight with these monkeys. As a result, strange scenes would frequently appear in the Beast King Valley. Whether it was big or small monkeys, thousands of them chased after Han Fei. It was not just one or two at all, but a whole army. Every day, the happiest thing for the monkeys was to drag Han Fei back. In order to compete for the right to drag Han Fei, these bastard monkeys would also fight among themselves. At this moment, an old monkey dragged Han Fei, whose face was bruised and swollen, proudly. While dragging him, he shouted, "Female monkeys, do you think I'm powerful? With me here, he can't run away." Many female apes roared at the same time. Some threw fruits to the old monkey, and the old monkey accepted them all, thinking to himself, "I can win tonight." Those monkeys who didn't grab the right to drag Han Fei were full of jealousy, grimacing and secretly swearing. Tomorrow we must drag Han Fei back. And as the person involved, Han Fei had become the standard of strength for the monkeys to find a mate. It had almost become a habit. Han Fei, who was being dragged, occasionally scratched his head, thinking that he was not fast enough. So, he couldn't run away. Tomorrow, he would definitely be able to run away. It had been less than 2 months since he came to Beast King Valley. On this night, the moonlight was shining. Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes, which were obviously a little more lively. This was the 18th time he ran away at night, and the effect was remarkable. On the first day, he almost ran out of the Beast King Valley. This time, Han Fei cleverly judged the best escape route according to the sleeping position of the monkeys. And cleverly, Han Fei deliberately left an afterimage in place with the phantom glass wings. Then, he put on a layer of stealth array, soundproof array, breath-concealing array. After doing all this, Han Fei quietly left. Han Fei thought no one noticed him. Little did he know that several old monkeys at the explorer level had already discovered him. However, these old monkeys didn't make a sound and still slept lazily. After all, he was an explorer now. The little monkeys had had enough fun. They knew that it was time for Han Fei to explore the territory of other beasts. So, they didn't make a sound. It wasn't until Han Fei ran more than 500 kilometers away that a law enforcer monkey found that Han Fei was gone. Roar! The human ran away. Oh no, that fool has become smart. When did he run away? Go after him, whoosh, whoosh. 2,000 kilometers away, Han Fei looked around vigilantly, thinking, I finally ran out. The surroundings were quiet. Han Fei scratched his head. He didn't realize that this was the closest place to the Beast King Valley. Therefore, this place could only be the territory of the strong. For some reason, Han Fei always had a creepy feeling, as if he was being watched by something. However, when he scanned with his soul, he found nothing. Even though Han Fei was a fool, he still found something wrong. This came from the premonition of danger. Sure enough, the void shook and a huge palm slapped over. Han Fei's figure quickly flashed out. However, the claw mark behind him slapped again. Feeling that the strength of the claw mark was not strong, Han Fei turned around and counterattacked. In the blink of an eye, the cudgel technique overlapped. After breaking the claw mark, Han Fei found that it was only the power of a peak-level junior law enforcer. But in the next moment, the claw mark in the void turned into the power of an intermediate law enforcer and was smashed by Han Fei again. Then, Han Fei couldn't block it anymore. He already knew who it was. Who else could it be but the colorful tiger? After being slapped 7 or 8 times in a row, he saw a huge colorful tiger walking out of the darkness. The Tiger King growled, "Human, your realm is not high, but your physique and strength are not bad. It took you 2 months to run out of the Beast King Valley. It seems that you are not as stupid as the Beast King said. Since you are here, come with me." More than an hour later, the Tiger King took Han Fei to an unfamiliar territory. Han Fei was protected by the Tiger King's breath-concealing technique. The Tiger King said to him via voice transmission, "I am a half-step venerable. Today I will teach you how to hunt. Night and breath-concealing are the best disguises in the world. In a while, learn the art of breath-concealment from this king." Han Fei scratched his head, but the Tiger King glared at him. "Don't scratch your head. Don't make any unnecessary movements when hunting. So, one man and one tiger quietly crept to a corner of the mountains, only to see a giant bear leaning against a big tree, sleeping soundly. The Tiger King said to him via voice transmission, "Remember not to communicate with others when hunting. The strong will be able to grasp this point." After a moment, roar, roar. At that moment the mountains were shaking and the trees were frightened. The Tiger King was running as fast as he could, shouting, "Idiot, run!" If it were the old Han Fei, he would have cursed at this moment. "Why don't you take me with you? I've already been picked up. Where do you want me to run?" The rampage giant bear opened its mouth and roared at Han Fei, "Boy, that stupid tiger is stupid, but I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Why are you sneaking up on me in the middle of the night? Are you crazy?" Swish. Han Fei drew a meteor in the sky, dumbfounded. He couldn't even open the phantom glass wings as if they were imprisoned, until he hit the ground with a bang. Han Fei, who was dizzy from the fall, opened his eyes, only to see the huge tiger head staring at him. The Tiger King said leisurely, "Maybe the target this time is a bit strong. But it doesn't matter. I will take you to hunt white sheep. This time we can steal it." Han Fei nodded. "Okay." A moment later, Han Fei was chased by 100 phantoms of giant sheep. He was hung on the sheep's horns and his lungs were about to be pushed out. As for the colorful tiger, well, it was long gone. The next morning, the multicolored tiger appeared. It looked at Han Fei and said, "I'm here to show you the different characteristics of different creatures. Okay, let's have a formal training today." Han Fei scratched his head. "Okay." The Tiger King said, "Don't scratch your head. That's what cats do. We are tigers. You lie on the ground." Han Fei. The Tiger King said, "All 4 feet on the ground." Han Fei did the same, but he was slightly confused. "Do I have to do this?" The Tiger King said, "Come on, roar with me. Roar, Han Fei, roar BM." Han Fei was slapped to the ground. The Tiger King roared, "Did you not eat? What's wrong with your pronunciation? You have to gather energy and spiritual energy in your chest and lungs. Inhale like swallowing, exhale like puffing." Again. Han Fei lay on the ground solemnly. Roar, the soul-suppressing roar of beasts was exactly the roar. Different creatures had different roars. However, when thousands of beasts roared at the same time, the roar could be used to kill souls. Once he mastered this technique, no matter what means Han Fei used, he could combine the roar of hundreds of beasts and kill souls with just one roar. In the daytime, he saw 2 idiots roaring. From time to time, the Tiger King suddenly slapped Han Fei away and shouted, "Momentum, it's mainly momentum. Although you are not a king, you have to have the aura of a king. Idiot, look. You have to look sharp. Otherwise, how can others be afraid of you?" Although Han Fei didn't know what sharp eyes had to do with roars. Anyway, he would learn what the Tiger King taught him. At night, the Tiger King took Han Fei to sneak attack. The explorer-level creatures in the surroundings were annoyed by the sneak attacks of the man and the tiger. However, every time, Han Fei was the only one who suffered. The worst time, Han Fei was pushed into the sky by the one-horned rhinoceros. The scene was extremely bloody. However, the effect was still great. At least at this moment, Han Fei looked fierce and his roar was like a tiger roaring in the forest. Many times, Han Fei felt that he was a fierce tiger. It could be said that he already had a good understanding of the tiger's habits, work and rest schedule, hunting methods, and so on. And the first imitation of the Beast King technique, which could also be called transformation, began. When Han Fei transformed, the beasts watched. The furious giant bear exclaimed, "This kid is a fast learner. But why does he look so much like a stupid tiger?" Bai Yang snorted. "How can they not look alike when there's something wrong with their brains?" The 6-tailed white fox narrowed its eyes. "Can he transform into a male fox?" The beasts. Han Fei's body suddenly soared, his limbs turned into tiger claws, His body turned into a tiger's body, and his head directly turned into a tiger's head. Although his body shape changed, in fact, it was not the essence of his body that had changed. Han Fei was still the same Han Fei, as if he had put on a layer of tiger skin. Roar! Han Fei roared like a real tiger. The Tiger King howled, "Ha, did you all see that? I saw it. This is what I taught you." Bah! Roar! Humph! The Tiger King didn't care but roared at Han Fei. "Come on, you know the Beast King technique, right? I know it too. I'll suppress my realm and fight with you." Han Fei hummed. Okay. As soon as Han Fei said so, he saw a big paw slapping at him. Bam! Han Fei was slapped away and the Tiger King said, "No secret methods, you can use the Beast King technique." Han Fei had long been used to the tiger's posture. Pouncing forward, he executed a tiger pouncing chain slap, a swipe of his claw across the air. To put it bluntly, it was all about digging. Roar! The Tiger King did not retreat a single step. His tiger claws struck out continuously. It was also a set of tiger pouncing chain strikes. However, at the same time, the Tiger King opened his big mouth and roared through the forest. Han Fei clearly felt that his soul was slightly stagnant. Then, with a bang, he was slapped away again. The Tiger King roared, "I taught you the tiger roar. Do you think it's just a decoration?" Han Fei didn't flinch and pounced on it again. When the two tigers fought, it depended on who would flinch first. All the beasts watched with relish. Unfortunately, neither of them was the flinching type. The Tiger King suppressed his realm, while Han Fei was invincible. Soon, the two tigers wrestled. Roar! Suddenly, Han Fei activated the Beast King technique, and all the beasts' eyes lit up. Even the Beast King's eyes fell on him. At that moment, Han Fei's body suddenly expanded to more than 50 meters. The Tiger King was disdainful and also activated the Beast King technique. The old bull said, "Now, let's see who can last longer." Han Fei, who had expanded to the limit, felt that his whole body was full of power. The power of his paw was probably about 5 times that of the previous one. After 100 seconds, the trees in the forest collapsed and branches and leaves flew everywhere. The two tigers had slapped each other countless times. The Tiger King roared, "Did this kid use other means? How can he last so long?" At this moment, no one was laughing at the Tiger King. Instead, all the beasts were a little surprised. The surrounding energy and spiritual energy were crazily drilling into Han Fei's body. In the end, Bai Yang confirmed, he has the swallowing technique. More than that, his spiritual heritage is too strong, and his body can naturally recover energy and spiritual energy. The Beast King said, "It's not surprising that this kid has the swallowing technique of the war giants." Hearing this, the Tiger King was furious. "No wonder. I'd like to see how long he can last." For the Tiger King, he could maintain this level of transformation for a long time. Because he was an explorer, he could absorb spiritual energy and energy. Han Fei opened his mouth and a light wave bombarded. The Tiger King smashed the light wave 3 times in a row. The Tiger King sneered, "I taught you that. Do you think you can beat me?" So, after 10 seconds, the Tiger King finally slapped Han Fei away, turning him from a big tiger to a small tiger. Lei Bao said coldly, "Stupid tiger, you lost. When you were at this level, you only lasted for 10 seconds. He lasted for 200 seconds. Oh. The Tiger King's body shrank and he roared at Lei Bao, "I lost? Are you kidding me? I didn't even use my full strength." The furious giant bear said, "Let's go. I'll be the next one." Bai Yang had already turned around and left, and the elephant had already turned around. The Tiger King roared, "Hey! What's wrong with you? This tiger was going easy on you back then, this tiger." The Tiger King stared at Han Fei, who had turned into a human. "Do you believe me?" Han Fei scratched his head. "Yes." The Tiger King glanced at Han Fei speechlessly. "What a fool. His IQ is much lower than mine. In the following year, Han Fei learned to be a furious bear from the rampage bear, became a cold sheep with the white sheep, became a ghost in the night with the thunder leopard, and almost mastered the iron head art with the single-horned rhinoceros. Most terrifyingly, Han Fei really became a male fox. So, he was slapped by the six-tailed white fox every day. The reason was that Han Fei was slapped by him was that he was a human, not a real fox. Among them, Han Fei felt that he was most suitable to be an elephant. It only took him less than 5 days to learn the shape of an elephant. Of course, this was learned from explorers. If he learned it from those law enforcers, his speed would be much faster. Usually, it only took him about 3 days. Because of the limited time, Han Fei didn't really learn all the beasts. And there were definitely more than 100 kinds of beasts in the Beast King Valley. However, Han Fei had learned all of the strongest creatures from them. During this period, Han Fei had been thinking, why hasn't Shiman Linglan come yet? Until a year later. Ho! Han Fei roared in his human form. His roar was like a thunderclap, and the sound waves rolled between heaven and earth. Within a kilometer, the rocks were unharmed, but the trees withered in the blink of an eye. The phantoms of hundreds of beasts stepped in the air, roaring ferociously. The Beast King's voice sounded leisurely. You've learned the 100-beast soul suppression roar. Come back. The Beast King was very satisfied with Han Fei's performance. However, he wasn't satisfied with the 100-beast soul suppression roar. In fact, Han Fei still lacked a lot of sounds. The real 100-beast soul suppression roar was like an explosion, and hundreds of beasts roared in the sky. That was the real appearance of the 100-beast soul suppression roar. The Beast King was satisfied that in the past year or so, Han Fei had mingled with the beasts and even regarded himself as a member of the Beast Clan countless times. So, the involvement was naturally very deep. He was sure that the relationship between Han Fei and the Beast Clan was already inseparable. If the Beast Clan was in trouble in the future, Han Fei couldn't sit back and do nothing. After all, that would be harmful to his moral heart. When Han Fei returned to the Beast King Valley, he immediately found Shiman Linglan, who was running away. Obviously, Shiman Linglan had never succeeded. Just like Han Fei, she was dragged on the ground by the ape and became a way for the ape to show off. Shiman Linglan was about to collapse. The Beast King told her that as long as she walked out of the Beast King Valley, she could find Han Fei. In the end, he had already been on the run for 9 months and had yet to escape more than 500 kilometers from Beast King Valley. Shiman Linglan said angrily, "You cheated. There are so many of you. How can you catch me?" Yuan was proud of himself, his face full of disdain. Back then, Wang Han also ran away like this. He took 52 days. Shiman Linglan was speechless. Every time she said this, she was speechless. But how could she compare with that idiot? That idiot was a peerless genius. Roar! Shiman Linglan only heard a roar. The next moment, Shiman Linglan saw the ape that was dragging her fly away. At some point, Han Fei had already picked himself up. At this moment, Han Fei's eyes were fierce and he was staring at the ape fiercely. Idiot! Shiman Linglan quickly turned Han Fei's head and said, I'm fine. I'm just cultivating. I don't blame them." However, the great ape let out a strange cry. "Oh no, Wang Han has returned from his studies." Suddenly, there was a commotion in the depths of the forest. Howling, a large group of apes rushed over with sticks, ready to fight Han Fei. Just as Shiman Linglan was about to tell them to leave, the Beast King suddenly said, All right. My children, come back. This kid has mastered the 100-beast soul-suppressing roar. You'll get hurt if you keep fighting." 100-beast soul-suppressing roar? Shiman Linglan was stunned. What kind of spell is that? It turned out that Han Fei was not here because he had gone to practice this technique. The Beast King's big hand appeared and grabbed the two of them. He saw the Beast King sitting calmly on his stone throne with his legs crossed. He thought to himself, This brat hasn't recovered his spiritual sense during this period of time? It seems that I'm worried too much. The Beast King said in a booming voice, "Little girl, not everyone can walk out of my Beast King Valley. It's your ability to walk out. Not everyone is qualified to cultivate the 100-beast soul-suppressing roar. It's his destiny to learn it. You can't learn it." Shimin Linglan pursed her lips and cupped her hands. "Senior Beast King, I'm already satisfied to learn the 3,000 magic stick." The Beast King nodded slightly, then looked at Han Fei and said seriously, "Wang Han, there's something you have to know. Keep it in mind." Han Fei immediately stood still and looked at the Beast King. The Beast King looked to the east and said, "The Beast King went to the east in search of miracles. I'm afraid he has already died. There may be a terrifying place in the east. You must be careful of the east in the future." Shimin Linglan didn't understand. Beast King? What kind of existence is that? Han Fei's soul trembled. Beast King, why do I seem to have heard this name before? The Beast King waved his hand and looked at Han Fei. "Okay. Your opportunity is over. Go find the heavenly crystal." When the Beast King said they could go, Han Fei's emotions immediately disappeared. He didn't want to stay here at all. He didn't know why. Chapter 11:28. All the birds belonged to the Sky Clan and liked to live on the cliff. All the cliffs in the 100,000 mountains were basically occupied by them. It was hard to find Tianqing. The Beast King roared and Tianqing took Han Fei and Wang Linglan away. For Shimin Linglan, it was impossible for her to receive the guidance of the venerable level masters in a short time. It was only because she tried very hard that she was able to receive some of the guidance, but she had already benefited a lot. At this moment, the two of them were standing on a towering mountain. With a serious face, Tianqing looked at the two of them for a while. Only to hear Tianqing say, "The Sky Clan, to this day, still have two techniques. One is the Heavenly Illusionary Divine Steps and the other is the Stars Passage technique. Wang Han, you can learn both. Shimin Linglan, you can only learn the Heavenly Illusionary Divine Steps and you can't teach it to others. Otherwise, I will come to you." Shimin Linglan was shocked. She knew that the venerable level masters were just teaching her, but she wasn't jealous at all. Anyway, in her opinion, there was no difference between teaching it to Han Fei and teaching it to herself. Besides, even if they were willing to teach her, she might not be able to learn all of them in just 1 year. For example, she got the War God Hammer from the War Giants, but she could only swing it twice, but she had already learned a lot. For example, she could only use the 3,000 magic cudgels, but she couldn't even get out of the Beast King Valley. Han Fei didn't notice it, but when he heard the words Stars Passage Technique, his eyes flashed. Tianqing looked at Han Fei. Does Han Fei have some connection with the Sky Clan? Out of curiosity, Tianqing pointed to the mountain in the clouds in the distance and said, "Han Fei, fly there and then back as fast as you can." Han Fei scratched his head. "Okay." Swish. He spread the phantom glass wings, activated the devil change, and activated the agility of wind. Swish. Bam. Han Fei broke through the sound barrier and disappeared from Shimin Linglan's sight. The latter slightly opened her mouth. So fast. Tianqing's expression didn't change at all. He shook his head slightly. Although Han Fei's speed was not slow, he didn't see the slightest trace of the Sky Clan's skills. Suddenly, the heavenly crystal saw that Han Fei continued to accelerate in the air, so he cast a speed array on himself. The heavenly crystal noticed that Han Fei's flying method had also changed. Although it was a kind of rapid movement technique, and although this kind of technique was only suitable for traveling in a straight line, it did have a trace of the divine movement technique. Immediately, Tianqing confirmed that Han Fei indeed had nothing to do with the Sky Clan. However, someone had observed the heavenly illusionary godly walk and captured a trace of its charm. That was why Han Fei could travel in such a hurry. Regarding this, Tianqing did not take it to heart. Even if Han Fei had all the opportunities, it couldn't compare to the heavenly illusionary divine walk. However, once he learned the ethereal steps, he might be able to unleash his speed to a terrifying level. Even the heavenly crystal was a little curious. If Han Fei learned the heavenly oasis divine walk, coupled with his secret techniques and arrays, his speed would probably be comparable to that of a half-step explorer. The reason why he was a half-step explorer was because once he became an explorer, he could no longer be measured by speed alone. At that time, the speed at which they could shatter the void was beyond the comprehension of the enforcers. Swish! Like a flash of light and shadow, when Han Fei stood on the top of the mountain again, Shimin Linglan had just breathed for 3 seconds. This made her feel very uncomfortable. The distance between the two mountains was more than 100 kilometers, right? And it only took him 3 seconds? Tianqing said lightly, "There's nothing to be surprised about. After learning the heavenly illusionary divine walk, 1 second is enough to cover such a distance. And the stronger you are, the faster you will be." Shimin Linglan felt her scalp go numb, and she clicked her tongue. Tianqing was probably the only one who could say this. Tianqing said, "Let go of your soul resistance. I will teach you the technique." 2 feather-shaped fingers pointed between Han Fei's and Shimin Linglan's eyebrows. At that moment, Han Fei only felt that the light and shadow in his mind were changing. The so-called heavenly illusionary divine walk turned out to be related to space. When traveling in a hurry, it allowed itself to fly between illusion and reality. The so-called air resistance at that moment disappeared. It was not only terrifying. This kind of technique would have strange energy in the illusion, which could actually propel itself forward. Under the dual effects, its speed could be pushed to the extreme. After an hour, Han Fei and Shimin Linglan opened their eyes one after another. Tianqing said lightly, "The so-called heavenly illusionary divine walk is actually not as real as what we see with our naked eyes. Under reality there is chaos and nothingness. There, you can't even judge the concept of time. What you have to do is to find that feeling of nothingness. The space in front of you is not purely real. When your speed reaches a certain level, you will realize the boundary between reality and illusion, which is the heavenly illusionary divine walk. If you want to enter this state, you must first reach an état." Tianqing's voice was cold and emotionless. However, every word he said was imprinted in the minds of Han Fei and Shimin Linglan. Shimin Linglan didn't feel anything because she couldn't rely on her own imagination to understand this mysterious thing. But Han Fei was different. The realm of nothingness appeared in his mind. For example, the starry sky of the sea-quelling painting and the forbidden soul space of the sky meditation garden. Those places changed the rules of time. However, his memory was incomplete, so he could only think of such a scene, but couldn't remember anything. However, there was still a difference between having experience and not having experience. Therefore, Han Fei felt that he seemed to understand a little bit, but also a little bit, so he couldn't wait to try it. Tianqing waved his hand and said indifferently, "Sky swimming, swallowtail, come here." Chirp! Han Fei and Shimin Linglan saw 2 flashes of light, one after the other, cutting through the sky like 2 flashes of light. Especially the ray of light in front of him, which cut through the sky, creating a shadow that was both real and fake. Han Fei suddenly covered his head and subconsciously said, "Sky swimming falcon." Tianqing suddenly looked at Han Fei. However, he immediately calmed down and thought to himself, "This kid, it seems that he also interacted with the Sky Clan in the future. In that case, in the future, my Sky Clan still continued to exist." Shimin Linglan hurriedly held Han Fei, her eyes complicated. It was impossible for Han Fei to have heard of a creature that she had never heard of. This could only mean one thing. In Han Fei's memory, there was the memory of the sky swimming falcon. Chirp! At this time, another big bird with a white head and a black body also landed. In contrast, the speed of this swallowtail was much slower. Tianqing said, The sky-swimming falcon is one of the fastest birds of prey in the Sky Clan. With a complete inheritance, the sky-swimming falcon is comparable to a legendary creature below the explorer level. Once it breaks through the explorer level and awakens its bloodline, its speed is comparable to that of an ancient mutant. Legend has it that in the Age of Gods, the strongest sky-swimming falcon was comparable to a divine beast. Wang Han, your task is to simulate the flying posture of the sky-swimming falcon and try to catch up with it. After speaking to Han Fei, Tian Qing pointed to the swallowtail and said to Shimen Linglan, "The swallow-tailed kite is famous for its elegance and agility. Its highest speed when hunting is comparable to that of a sky-surveying golden eagle. It is impossible for you to catch up with a sky-swimming falcon of the same realm. So, the swallow-tailed kite is your goal, but it is also very difficult. Catch it first and practice flying skills." After Tian Qing finished speaking, he said to Swallowtail Kite, "Take her to practice first." Shimen Linglan glanced at Han Fei and knew that Tian Qing wanted to teach Han Fei the star-shifting technique alone. She didn't want to disturb him, so she jumped down and chased after the swallow-tailed kite. After Shimen Linglan left, Tian Qing said lightly, "You should have seen the sky-swimming falcon, but I don't know if you have fought with it before. If you have, you will find that the sky-swimming falcon can perform the star-shifting technique in a small range. This technique can ignore the rules of space and help you escape from the cage and the situation of certain death. However, the star-shifting technique is not complete. If you want to achieve the real star-shifting technique, you need to control it for a certain amount of time. You don't need to understand it now, you just need to remember it. Come back in 3 months, and I will teach you the star-shifting technique." The sky-swimming falcon tilted its head and glanced at Han Fei. "If you catch up with me, I will treat you to fish." Han Fei was irritated by the sky-swimming falcon's provocative tilt of its head. He didn't know why he was irritated. In his mind, a scene of him fighting with the sky-swimming falcon appeared. Swish! Han Fei quickly grabbed the sky-swimming falcon, but the latter's figure flashed and appeared 100 meters away. Tian Qing said lightly, "Wang Han, except for speed, you are not allowed to use unconventional means to fight." Tian Qing could see it clearly. Of course, he knew that the sky-swimming falcon was no match for Han Fei in the same realm. However, in terms of speed, Han Fei had little hope of winning. Swish! Swish! A bird and a man flew out one after another and suddenly disappeared into the vast clouds. For some reason, Han Fei felt a little angry when he saw the sky-swimming falcon and wanted to catch it very much. However, when he ran at full speed, he found that he was still not as fast as this bird. The sky-swimming falcon's voice was imprinted in Han Fei's mind, "Idiot, if you want to catch up with me at this speed, you will never be able to do so in your life." "Ho!" Han Fei roared. For a time, a strange scene appeared in the 100,000 mountains. The man and the bird chased each other. Every time they passed over a mountain, a large number of birds took off. In the sky, the golden eagle hovered and the giant eagle chased. On the cliff, thousands of birds fluttered their wings and all kinds of voices were shouting, "Fly, fly! That human is so fast. No matter how fast he can't compare with the sky-swimming falcon." But after chasing like this for half an hour, the anger in his heart disappeared, as if it had dissipated. His eyes were still dull, and Han Fei's flying posture was more and more like the sky-swimming falcon. The sky-swimming falcon screamed, "Learn from me? Humph, it's useless. You still can't catch up with me." No matter what kind of technique, as long as there was a way to learn it, progress was inevitable. On the path of cultivation, as long as one concentrated on practicing most of the techniques, one could always make some achievement. There were also a few techniques, such as the indestructible body, which were extremely difficult to practice, and the 64-dimensional fish-dragon dance, which was extremely difficult to comprehend. The difficulty of practicing the heavenly illusionary divine walking technique was not mainly in flying. In terms of flying skills alone, it only took Han Fei half a month to be almost as good as the sky-swimming falcon. Therefore, in the next period of time, this man and the bird almost flew over most of the 100,000 mountains. They even flew over the war giants, the Beast King Valley, and the Demon Plant Forest many times. And Han Fei also had some understanding of the so-called real situation. This was like a strong man stepping on the void. When the speed was extremely fast, Han Fei often ignored the time. And at this time, the picture in Han Fei's eyes was also different. It was like the space was distorted, or some special lines appeared in the space. After 2 months of chasing, Han Fei had entered the state of selflessness several times. At that moment, he had forgotten that he was chasing the sky-swimming falcon, but kept flying in a certain direction, and the sky-swimming falcon was chasing him, or watching him. On this day, Han Fei once again entered the state of selflessness. It was as if he could see flowing lights and vibrant colors in the illusion. Even Han Fei himself didn't realize that his speed was almost several times faster. The sky-swimming falcon had been following him. Anyway, its task was to teach him how to fly. Could he comprehend it? It depended on Han Fei. But as it flew, the sky-swimming falcon's face suddenly changed. "Not good, stupid Wang Han, stop. We're flying in the wrong place. Stop." However, Han Fei had already entered the state of selflessness. In the same realm, his speed was not slower than the sky-swimming falcon at all. Therefore, the sky-swimming falcon couldn't stop him for a while. In the distance, beyond the 3 mountains, there was also a towering mountain. That was the first peak of the 100,000 mountains. It was extremely steep and could be said to reach the sky. At this moment, within a radius of more than 30 kilometers, the wind and rain were blowing and thunder was rumbling. Swish! Surprisingly, Han Fei had been alternating between illusion and reality. But suddenly, a dark void appeared in front of him. Han Fei plunged his head into it. When Han Fei plunged into the void, he instantly came back to himself. Did he just tear the void apart? But he had no experience. Whether it was before or now, Han Fei had never stepped into the state of nothingness. Now that he had come in, he didn't know how to get out. In this void, the only difference was that there was a light spot in front of him. Instinctively, Han Fei went straight to the light spot. Swish! When Han Fei appeared again, he found himself on a mountain top. Around the mountain top, the wind and rain were blowing, and occasionally lightning flashed across the sky. In front of him there was a big red tree. The tree was more than 10 meters high, and its leaves were like red ribbons, drifting in the wind like algae in the ocean. Under the tree there was a strange man with a human body, a goat head, and a fox tail. This person had 2 horns on his head, and his hair, eyebrows, and beard were all very long, but he looked extremely young. On his shoulders, there were bone spurs protruding from his flesh, like 2 small wings in front of him. A pair of gray wings were folded behind him, and a long tail was casually dragging on the ground. At this moment, this person was smiling and looking at Han Fei. Han Fei scratched his head, not knowing what to say, so he just looked at this person. After a while, this person said in a warm voice, "Sure enough, your soul is in chaos and your divine sense is sealed. Young man, if you don't mind, can I take a look at your soul?" Han Fei took a step back slightly. He had never seen this person before, so he subconsciously rejected him. Tianqing's figure suddenly appeared. Seeing Tianqing, Han Fei was relieved. Tianqing glanced at the strange man with a complicated expression. "You can't peek at his soul. It is protected by a powerful soul treasure. If you peek at it forcibly, I'm afraid his soul will be crushed directly." However, the strange man said, "I'm the same as you. I can just peek at it. At most, I will make him vomit blood." Tianqing nodded slightly and said to Han Fei, "Disciple, don't worry, he won't hurt you. Hearing Tianqing's words, Han Fei was slightly relieved. When the man stretched out his finger, Han Fei only felt a very gentle force on his forehead. This time, he didn't vomit blood. Before Han Fei could react, the strange man had retracted his hand. The strange man took a few steps, stood on the top of the mountain, looked up at the sky, and let the sharp rain beat on his body. At that moment, Han Fei inexplicably felt a sense of loneliness. This man was very lonely. After a long time, Tianqing said, "How is it?" The strange man shook his head slightly. "As you said, his soul treasure is indeed powerful. However, only from a trace of scattered memory fragments, the human race still exists. However, the great path is incomplete, so it will be more difficult for him to become a king." Tianqing's eyes narrowed. "What about the other races?" The strange man said lightly, "Although this man is a heavenly talent, his foundation is extremely young. He hasn't come into contact with the other races yet. However, I feel a trace of weirdness from him." Tianqing asked, "What?" The strange man said leisurely, "Luck and ominous." Before Tianqing continued to ask, the strange man continued, "To be precise, he should not be qualified to come into contact with ominous things. But through this ominous thing, we can probably infer that there are still strong masters above the king-level fighting in the future." Tianqing sighed slightly. "So, there are still no clues about the gods?" The strange man nodded slightly. "Yes. Okay, you can take him away. However, once this person becomes a peak-level law enforcer, he will be protected by his soul treasure and can't be sealed. With his level 9 spiritual heritage, even if he doesn't cultivate, his growth speed will not be slow. Even if you suppress your realm, you won't be able to suppress it for more than 50 years. Tianqing nodded slightly. "I see." Han Fei didn't understand a word. It seemed that they were talking about him, but why? He didn't know. When Tianqing took Han Fei away, the sky-swimming falcon rushed over. "King, are you okay?" Tianqing shook his head. "I'm fine. Wait for me to teach him the star's passage technique. You can continue. This time I will fight." The sky-swimming falcon was relieved to hear that. In the 100,000 mountains, the only mountain that couldn't be approached was the highest peak. This time, he was too muddle-headed. He didn't notice it in advance, and almost got into trouble. Han Fei suddenly asked, "Who is he?" Tianqing glanced at Han Fei slightly. "You are really curious. You can't suppress your curiosity even if you seal your soul sense. He is an ominous son of God, the strongest master in the 100,000 mountains, who can fight against 4 gods." Han Fei's eyes showed a trace of surprise. One person can fight against 4 gods? How strong is he? But Tianqing also said lightly, however, his path is blocked. Therefore, he has no hope of becoming a king. In the future, when the Beast King becomes a king, he will no longer be the strongest. Han Fei asked, "His path is blocked?" Tianqing said with a little regret, "Wang Han, there are gods in this world. The Son of God is just the continuation of the bloodline of the gods. When the gods fall, the great Tao disintegrates and destroys their path. In this case, unless he recultivates and opens a new path, it is possible to break through and become a king. However, the world is turbulent and there is no time left for him." Han Fei didn't understand. However, he didn't ask again as if this was too far away from him. Han Fei's Heavenly Oasis divine walking technique was not really at his fingertip. However, he had already mastered it, and the rest was just a matter of practice. When the star's passage technique was transmitted, Tianqing said lightly, "Don't use any secret methods. When you can meet the sky-swimming falcon with your speed, that's when you can master it." Compared with Han Fei, Shimen Linglan's speed of comprehension was much slower. It was not until the 8th month that Shimen Linglan finally mastered the selfless state and entered the Heavenly Oasis divine walking technique. After that, the swallow-tailed kite no longer cared about Shimen Linglan. So, on a high cliff somewhere in the 100,000 mountains, Shimin Linglon was cultivating alone. In the past 3 years, she had indeed learned a lot. At this time, she looked at the man and the bird who were infinitely twisting the space in the void from time to time. She would be lying if she said she wasn't envious. However, Shimin Linglon knew that it was too difficult. Not everyone could do it. Even Han Fei had been fighting this kind of high-frequency space chase for half a year. And he hadn't even touched the sky-swimming falcon yet. The 10th month. The sky-swimming falcon shouted, "I warn you, don't use other means, I am watching you. Once you use other means, I will tell the king." The void around Han Fei was twisting. With a swish, his body appeared in front of the sky-swimming falcon. The space around the sky-swimming falcon changed almost at the same time. But this time, as soon as the sky-swimming falcon appeared, it saw that Han Fei appeared almost at the same time as it did, and his fingers had already grabbed its feathers. "How is this possible?" the sky-swimming falcon screamed. When it took a closer look, it found that the one chasing its figure turned out to be a clone. "Chirp, chirp, chirp," the sky-swimming falcon screamed. "You cheated! We agreed not to use other means." Shimin Linglon laughed on the top of the mountain. "This is not a trick. This is his flashing ability, which is also a kind of speed." The sky-swimming falcon snorted and shouted, "Wang Han cheated. He cheated to win." Tianqing grunted and lightly said, "Okay, if you want to be shameless then be shameless. You just need to learn the star passage technique." Tianqing stepped on the top of the mountain. "Let's go to the demon plant forest. Remember, don't eat spiritual fruits, don't eat anything." Han Fei scratched his head. "Okay. First, asking for votes, end of this chapter." Chapter 11:29. The territory of the demon plants covered the entire 100,000 mountains. However, the territory of the demon plants almost occupied the 3,000 peaks in the south of the 100,000 mountains. In the 100,000 mountains, the territory of the four venerables was the largest, the Sky Clan was second, the Beast Clan was third, and the War Giants were the smallest. The Sky Crystal didn't send Han Fei and Shimin Linglon off. When the two of them came to the demon plant forest, they felt their blood freeze. Shimin Linglon grabbed Han Fei's hand and didn't let go. Last time, she was directly taken into the depths of the demon plant forest by the water fairy. She had never met so many creatures. This time, she saw a lot of demon plants and insects that she had never seen before. The two of them first passed through a land full of thorns and vines. Then, a lot of mushrooms, man-eating flowers, and exploding fruits appeared. The creatures that appeared were mostly centipedes, spiders, ants, moths, and so on. In terms of species, there were too many of them. There were also a lot of human-faced ladybugs and two-headed bug. Of course, these insects were actually nothing. When Han Fei and Shimin Linglon passed by the spiritual orchard, many strange-looking fruits opened their mouths, revealing their mouths full of sharp teeth. Some fruits looked extremely creepy like insects. For some reason, a fat man appeared in Han Fei's mind. It was the fat man who often appeared in his dreams. The fat man was talking to himself. "Han Fei, I'm being chased by fruits." Han Fei scratched his head, but he didn't remember anything. Fortunately, all the demon plants and insects didn't attack Han Fei and Shimin Linglon. Along the way, the two passed by the territory of spiders, the butterfly valley, and the worm cave. In the end, they walked into the normal demon plant forest. The first one they encountered was a heavenly red hibiscus. This heavenly red hibiscus was much larger than the one that Han Fei killed in the remote wilderness jungle. It seemed to have received instructions, so the heavenly red hibiscus didn't even release its pollen. It just let Han Fei and Shimin Linglon pass by. Then, Han Fei saw a mess of giant demon plants, such as 9-headed snake grass, huge sunflowers, sky-purple bamboos, and heavenly vines. In the end, they seemed to have reached a place that Shimin Linglon was familiar with. Han Fei was pulled by Shimin Linglon to run to a big river. Shimin Linglon said, "Senior, we are here. After a few dozen breaths, the calm lake surface began to swell. A huge white lotus emerged from the water and bloomed. The water immortal's body was graceful and graceful. She stepped on the air and walked towards the shore step by step. Shimen Linglan was envious of water deity's elegance. Once upon a time, when she was young, she had also learned it. However, ever since she left the great desolate village with Han Fei, the former heavenly talent of a large clan had become a wild girl, competing with wild beasts for food. She was no longer the same as before. Water deity glanced at Han Fei and smiled. In another year, I should be a peak-level junior law enforcer. Shimen Linglan sighed inwardly. I didn't slack off either. Now, he was only a peak-level hidden fisher. Even so, under the nurturing of the four venerables, his speed was already unbelievably fast. However, she admitted that she was still far inferior to Han Fei. The water deity did not continue this topic. Instead, she smiled and said, along the way you should have seen countless living beings. In the 100,000 mountains, and even in the entire world, the demon plants had the most tenacious vitality. Even if the 100,000 mountains were destroyed by the sea, the demon plant clan would not be completely wiped out. Han Fei was listening carefully, but Shimen Linglan was puzzled. In that case, why did the demon plants fight against the sea demons? Water deity walked on the grassland full of tender leaves and continued, however, the demon plants on the land and the sea demons are different, after all. Everyone has chosen a different path. Since you've chosen it, you have to continue. Then, water deity stopped sighing and said frankly, Wang Han, I don't have anything to teach you. However, I can teach you some principles and teach you some demon plant lessons? Han Fei said subconsciously. Isn't this a lesson? It seems that no matter where you are, you need to have lessons. Water deity smiled. Yes. The first lesson is that the demon plants are one of the creatures with the most vitality in the world. For ordinary human venerables, 5,000 years would be the end of their lives. But for the demon plants, this period might be 10 times longer. Moreover, different demon plants aged at different speeds. In the Age of Gods, there were demon plants that lived for millions of years without dying. This is the demon plant. Millions of years. Shimen Linglan swallowed her saliva and thought to herself, isn't it meaningless to live for so long? Han Fei's reaction was much calmer. He just nodded. A white lotus condensed on water deity's fingertip. It was fresh, pure, and flawless. She handed the white lotus to Han Fei. Han Fei took it in confusion. In the next moment, the white lotus suddenly dispersed. Han Fei's face tightened. In an instant, his palm was covered in blood. Some of the wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. Shimen Linglan hurriedly said, healing. Han Fei cast a divine healing technique on himself and looked at water deity in confusion. The latter was looking at him quietly. Don't underestimate the power of the demon plants. In a sense, it's very difficult to kill a powerful demon plant. However, they can easily kill you. Han Fei nodded slowly. Got it. 1 year later. The giant king city. When water deity took Han Fei and Shimen Linglan to this giant city again, the 3 venerables were all there. The reason why they gathered here every time was that the Beast King, Tianqing, and water deity didn't have a place to meet people. Only humans knew how to build houses. Although the war giants were giants, they were also humans. The giant king clapped his hands and laughed. Wang Han, you've made great progress in the past few years. Have you learned everything you need to learn? The Beast King raised his head and said, Anyway, my Beast King Valley taught me well. The giant king mumbled, Are you saying that I didn't teach you well? Tianqing interrupted, You learned well. Water deity pointed with one hand and isolated Han Fei and Shimen Linglan in the water prison. Then she smiled lightly. Let him break through. The giant king frowned. Didn't you say to suppress him? Tianqing said lightly. He won't be able to do it for long. He won't be able to suppress him for more than 50 years. Not only will his spiritual sense be suppressed, but his soul will also recover. Water deity nodded. You've given him too many things in the past few years. Even if he doesn't want to improve, his spiritual heritage is too strong, so his strength will certainly improve. Now, he is already a peak-level junior law enforcer. If you don't mind him breaking through to become an intermediate law enforcer on his own, you can continue to suppress him. Tianqing said, No. If he breaks through on his own, his spiritual sense will be awakened. If he breaks through on his own, who will seal his spiritual sense? The Beast King muttered, Actually, it's fine if we don't seal him. Is it just to let him stay in this era for a few more years? He can't find the answer he wants, can he? Water deity smiled and said, Not necessarily. In fact, even if we don't seal his spiritual sense, his soul will still be damaged and will only repeat in dreams and reality. Now that he is close to the threshold, it's better to help him break through and become an intermediate law enforcer. At that time, it will be up to him to awaken his spiritual sense. Besides, if we help him break through now, his self-protection ability will be stronger. Water deity paused. Besides, finding the answer to the war between the human race and the sea demons is not necessarily his purpose of coming here. Otherwise, he would have had the opportunity to go back long ago. He comes from the human race but hasn't had much contact with the human race. Instead, he stayed in the 100,000 mountains for so long. Don't you have any doubts? Tianqing nodded. Yes, compared with the 100,000 mountains, the human race seems to have a harder time. The giant king hummed, Then make a breakthrough. I don't mind. Anyway, he will leave sooner or later. The four of them reached a consensus. After removing the water prison, Water deity flipped her hand and handed over a spiritual fruit. Water deity said, Shiman Linglong, go out. Wang Han, eat it. Shiman Linglong had long been used to it and ran out of the palace, grunting. Han Fei glanced at her and then took the spiritual fruit. About an hour later, the tide of spiritual energy on Han Fei's body calmed down and he opened his eyes. At that moment, a lot of images intertwined. When the images subsided, Han Fei's spiritual sense returned to his eyes. Han Fei smiled bitterly, got up and cupped his hands. Junior Han Fei greets the four masters. The giant king buzzed, his face overjoyed. Oh, you remember? The Beast King said excitedly. What do you remember? Han Fei smiled helplessly. Well, I don't remember much. Except for my name, I roughly know where I came from. Tianqing asked, Who sent you here? Seeing the four venerables looking at him, Han Fei smiled bitterly. Well, I seem to only remember the first half of my memory. Everyone sighed. I knew that his memory hadn't been fully restored. Water deity said, What about the future? Han Fei habitually scratched his head. In the future, there was a big floating island suspended in the sky. Ordinary people went to sea by flying boat and made a living by fishing. Some human masters drew a trial place in the sea, which was called a fishery. It followed the current level system. Well, it seems that after reaching the hanging fisher level, you have to go to a place called the unknown place to fight. I forgot about this place. Tianqing was surprised. In the sky? An entire island suspended in the sky? How did he do it? Han Fei shook his head. I feel that I can remember, but I can't. Water deity said, It's good enough that he can talk to us normally. This matter must have been designed in secret, and I'm afraid the rules of the Great Path won't let him say it. Otherwise, it may directly affect the future. The giant king hummed. I don't care about that. Let me ask you, are the war giants still around? Han Fei shook his head slightly. No. The Beast King roared, What about the beasts? Han Fei shook his head slightly. I feel that I've met them somewhere. The Beast King breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Han Fei said again, I remember the Sky Clan, but they are few in number. I don't know if there are any parts that I can't remember. As for the demonic plant clan, most of them are sea demonic plants. However, I always feel that I have missed something. Oh, by the way, masters, the world where I live should be very small, only occupying a corner of the sea. I haven't been further. Tianqing asked, "Are there many kings in the future?" Han Fei said resolutely, "No one in the world where I live can become a king." Han Fei remembered this because it was branded in the depths of his mind. So serious? The four venerables looked at each other in bewilderment. Although it was difficult to become a king, it shouldn't be that there was no one who could become a king in the entire world, right? The Beast King muttered, "No wonder. I see. I'm afraid this kid is here to find a chance to become a king, right?" Everyone was silent, as if they were thinking about how to become a king in this age of doom. In fact, Han Fei had already remembered a lot of things. In a blur, he could even remember that he was pricked by something, which caused his soul to be in a mess. He was almost sure that as long as his strength broke through another level, his soul could be restored to at least 80%. Han Fei was puzzled by the floating stone's forgetfulness. Its name seemed to be on the tip of his tongue, but every time he wanted to say it, he forgot it. Suddenly, Han Fei was shocked and he hurriedly asked, "Masters, is this the real world?" The four of them. Han Fei had a guess. Was he in some kind of illusion? The Beast King smashed the rod on the ground. F***ck, I've taught you for so long, and you ask if this is the real world? If this is not the real world, is it fake? Do you think we are illusions? Han Fei smiled awkwardly. You're right. At least, in his memory, everything that happened in this world was extremely real. Every scene was vivid in his mind. But if this was the real world, was it because some kind of power was restricting him from changing this world? Han Fei was not sure. He glanced at the door with a complicated look and sighed. It seemed that he could only wait for the next breakthrough to see how much he could remember. The giant king buzzed. "Boy, do you still want to seal your spiritual sense?" Han Fei hesitated. This time was different from last time. Last time, when he recovered his spiritual sense, he remembered very few things. But now it was different. He had already remembered a lot. While Han Fei was hesitating, the water fairy said, "From what you said, you should be a very independent person. If you keep your memories, it may be you leading Shiman Linglan outside for a period of time in the future. If you continue to seal your spiritual sense, then Shiman Linglan can only lead you. Do you know what you're going to do next?" Han Fei shook his head slightly. Suddenly, he paused and looked out of the door. It should be to help her get revenge. Suddenly, a voice sounded in the hall. "Continue to seal. This boy is just a passerby here. He just needs to watch and listen. The 100,000 mountains and he are destined to meet, so he came. That human woman is also destined to meet him, so there must be something between them. He can only follow and promote this period of history, but he can't interfere on his own. Otherwise, the great Tao will investigate and this boy will be doomed." Divine Son. Han Fei was taken aback. Is there such a saying? The giant king buzzed. That seems right. He knows too much about the future. If he causes any trouble, it will be very bad. The Beast King roared. That's fine. You can still slack off. Cultivating in an ignorant state will actually make you more focused. The water fairy said lightly. In fact, the news that Han Fei revealed has been very useful. The floating island may be our breakthrough point. The heavenly Qing nodded slightly. Yes, but how to float? This is a problem. Leave it to me. I'll deal with the human race and the Blackrock City. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Han Fei wondered if his appearance had changed a lot of things. The giant king buzzed a few times. Boy, I'll seal your spiritual sense. After a while, Han Fei's eyes became dull again. The Beast King frowned and said, "I'm going to find the Divine Son." The Water Fairy said, "I'm going to take a walk in the world. In any case, I'm afraid we still have to fight the Sea Clan. If we don't have the secret of floating on land, we can only do it in the sea." Swish, swish. The heavenly Qing, the beast king, and the water fairy disappeared one after another. The giant king was left behind, howling, "Alas! What about these two boys?" The water fairy's voice echoed in the palace. "Wait until we come back." The giant king muttered, then blinked his eyes and suddenly pointed his finger at Han Fei, knocking him out. Seeing that no one was around, the giant king quietly took out a small bottle and muttered, "It's not easy to find the secrets of this world. No matter what, I must maintain the bloodline of the god of war." The giant king separated a wisp of his soul, wrapped this small bottle, and directly sank into Han Fei's body. The giant king's voice sounded in Han Fei's ear. "If you become a venerable, you will naturally find it. At that time, if there are still people of my clan, you must help me pass on the bloodline of the god of war." The giant king chuckled. After all, among the 4 people, he was the smartest. He proudly felt that he was also a human being, and his IQ couldn't be lower than that of a monkey, a bird, or a flower. Han Fei smacked his lips. He probably didn't hear it because he was sleeping soundly. Half a month later, Shimin Linglan took Han Fei to the previous battlefield, which was the seaside hunting. Because there were no attacks from the Sea Clan, there were only the War Giants and the Sky Clan who hunted nearby. Shimin Linglan dragged a big squid and walked up from the sea. "Idiot, let's eat this for lunch." Han Fei scratched his head and chuckled. "Okay." At noon, Han Fei was making teppanyaki, focused and serious. Shimin Linglan suddenly said, "Idiot, when do you think I will become a law enforcer?" Han Fei looked up at Shimin Linglan and smiled foolishly. "Soon." Shimin Linglan sighed leisurely. "Idiot. In fact, I have always known my path. From the day I was kicked out of the Shimin family, I knew it." Han Fei raised his head and looked at Shimin Linglan as if feeling that this was the time to listen. Shimin Linglan said lightly, "I didn't tell you before because you didn't understand. Although you can't understand it now, I always feel that such a comfortable life is too strange. Since we entered the jungle of the far wilderness, we have never lived such a comfortable life. I always feel that it is not real. I am afraid that it will break at any time." Seeing Han Fei looking at her, Shimin Linglan smiled lightly. "Actually, let me tell you a secret. My real spiritual heritage is actually very high. Isn't level 8 high quality very high?" Han Fei nodded quickly. A trace of hatred flashed in Shimin Linglan's eyes. "But it was snatched away by them. My mother gave her own spiritual heritage to me. Otherwise, I would have died. As a result, I didn't die, but she died." As if feeling Shimin Linglan's sadness, Han Fei reached out and touched Shimin Linglan's head. Shimin Linglan smiled through tears, grabbed a squid tentacle, and stuffed it into Han Fei's mouth. She said, "Forget it. I won't talk to you about this. It's good if you live like this every day. I don't want to take revenge anymore." At night, in the starry sky, the stars were twinkling. Han Fei and Shimin Linglan stared at the starry sky with their eyes wide open. They remembered that the last time they closed their eyes to sleep was in the War Giant. Once they were outside, the two of them didn't feel sleepy. It was a good life to hunt during the day and look up at the starry sky at night. However, all of a sudden, Han Fei's whole body tightened. He sensed that a huge wave broke out on the sea. "Oh!" In the distance, a war giant roared, "What's going on?" Someone picked up a mace. "Is there a war again? Come on, inform our people." Chirp, in the sky, hundreds of birds took off and rushed into the 100,000 mountains. A war giant who was on guard on the coast roared, "Everyone, prepare for battle." However, when the tsunami was 500 kilometers offshore, Han Fei and the strong man were surprised to find that the sea monsters didn't attack the island. A strong man's face changed slightly, and he cursed in his heart, "Not good, it's a battle between venerables." The appearance of tsunamis was mostly caused by the movement of the Earth's crust and strong kinetic energy. When the first tsunami came, the second wave followed closely behind. Immediately afterward, the sky was covered by dark clouds, and thunder rumbled in the sky. This scene lasted from midnight to noon the next day. At this time, war giants stood on the coastline, the sky monsters hovered, and the demon plants formed a sea of demon plants again. Boom! In the sky, red light filled the air, and the heavy rain was sharp. An explorer-level strong man said in a trembling voice, "A venerable has fallen." Boom! Boom! 3 beams of red light split the sky in a row, and the rain turned from red to dark red, as if there was blood dripping down. Everyone was shocked. In just a few seconds, 3 venerables had fallen. It could be seen how fierce the battle in the deep sea was. Han Fei's body was tense. He liked the giant king very much, so he was very worried at this moment. Shimin Linglan knew what Han Fei was thinking, so she grabbed his hand and comforted him. "Don't worry, Master and the others are so strong. They will be fine." This kind of battle was not something ordinary people could touch. In the evening of the next day, the rain was even fiercer, and as many as 8 bright red cracks appeared in the sky, which meant that 8 venerables had fallen. Suddenly, a boundless roar came from the sky. "Divine Sun, you will pay for what you did!" A cold and ruthless voice echoed in the void. The next moment, another venerable fell. In just one day, 9 venerables fell. This was something that had never happened in thousands of years. Shimin Linglan looked at Han Fei. For some reason, she felt that this matter was not ordinary and seemed to have a lot to do with Han Fei. Subconsciously, she held Han Fei's hand tighter. Boom! In the distance, a pair of big feathers covered the sky, crossing the sky and crashing straight to the 100,000 mountains. Chirp! At that moment, thousands of birds flew into the sky and turned into streams of light. King! It was none other than the heavenly crystal. On the back of the heavenly crystal, there was another person. Who else could it be but the giant king? However, at this moment, the 2 of them were in a terrible state. Half of the heavenly crystal's wings were cut off, and the big feathers on his body withered, leaving only about half of them. The giant king was even worse. He had lost an arm and a leg. At this moment, he was carried by tens of thousands of birds in the sky and slowly landed. King! 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 Countless people were roaring and rushing there. Han Fei and Shimin Linglan had already rushed over. Before they arrived, Han Fei began to use the divine healing technique on the 2 of them. F***ck, I'm dead, I'm dead. The giant king lay on the ground, his mouth still spewing blood, his voice buzzing. The heavenly crystal also turned into a human form, his face still cold. However, he looked like he was going to faint at any time. Han Fei had anxiously cast dozens of divine healing technique. However, the wounds on the 2 of them didn't get better at all. The next moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the 2 of them. It was the divine prince with a sheep head, a human body, and a fox tail that Han Fei had met once. At this moment, the divine prince's body was shining with golden light. He grabbed with one hand, and endless energy from the void poured into the giant king and the heavenly crystal. He glanced at Han Fei indifferently. "Put away your healing technique. Venerables can be reborn from a drop of blood. This kind of injury has the rules of the Great Path. You can't cure it." Second, please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 1130. Feeling that the surroundings were too noisy, the divine sun carried the 2 of them in each hand and disappeared into the void. The war giant tribe and the sky tribe could be seen running madly towards their own territories. Han Fei looked at his hands blankly and then ran all the way to the king city with Shimin Linglan. The giant city. Because the closest city was the giant king city. This was also the place where the 4 venerables usually met. So, Han Fei's first thought was to come here. Sure enough, when Han Fei arrived, giants stood all over the mountains and plains. The giant priestess was praying for blessings. In the sky, there was a dense mass of the Sky Clan. Spirit plants covered the entire mountain and plains surrounding it. F***ck, get out of my way. Don't make any noise here. When Han Fei arrived, he saw the Beast King standing on the platform of the King City fiercely and scolding. When he saw the Beast King, Han Fei was relieved. Fortunately, the Beast King was fine. Seeing Han Fei rushing over, the Beast King didn't stop him. He just stared at him and said, "Don't make any noise." In the palace, the divine sun was saving people. The giant king and the heavenly crystal could be seen. But the water fairy was gone. At this moment, only a white lotus and a ball of white light could be seen. Nothing else could be seen. Han Fei hurriedly ran to the Beast King. Although he didn't know what to say, he just looked at the Beast King. Seeing Han Fei's anxious eyes, the Beast King snorted slightly. "They're not dead." This time it was a sneak attack. The 100,000 mountains joined forces with the human venerables and the strong masters of the Black Rock City to sweep the sea and find the secret. This battle was a great victory, but the sacrifice was not small. The Black Rock City and the human race each lost a venerable. The fairy lost 2 incarnations and her body was destroyed, but she can reassemble them. This is the unique ability of the demonic plant clan. Old Gu and the heavenly crystal were seriously injured by the laws of Tao. They can recover in 100 years. 100 years? Shimin Linglan exclaimed subconsciously. The Beast King glanced at the two of them. What do you two know? This battle can set the trend for at least 500 years. We bought at least 500 years. Han Fei scratched his head, not understanding. The guy who was called the Son of God looked back and said, "You two go to sea." Fortuitous opportunities were everywhere in the sea region. If there were no surprises, the humans would have already begun to move. In times of chaos, it is the best opportunity to rise. The Beast King breathed heavily and looked at Han Fei. "Disciple, from today on, you need to suppress your level. Don't break through unless it's absolutely necessary." Shimin Linglan was stunned. Why? The Beast King snorted. "There's no why, it's only good for you. In addition, the sea region is in turmoil. You humans are the most prone to internal strife. Be careful. Go. I don't have time to teach you anything in the 100,000 mountain range for now." With a wave of the Beast King's hand, Han Fei and Shimin Linglan appeared in a forest. In the giant King City's palace, the god Sun said indifferently, "Have you found that levitation technique?" The Beast King grunted, "No, Tianqing and I searched everywhere, but we couldn't find it." The god Sun nodded. "What I'm thinking is that it's not that he can't remember, but that it's because of the restrictions of the Great Way. Logically speaking, even those above the king level can't cross the river of time with their real bodies, not to mention that he told us this secret." The Beast King frowned. "What do you mean?" The god Sun said leisurely. "He may have come here as a wisp of his soul. This is easy to guess. However, he can reveal the secret of the future? This is very likely to mean that there is something wrong with the village in our era. Or there is something wrong with Han Fei himself that he doesn't even know." Shimin Linglan's face was a little pale. She didn't expect that this day would come so soon, so suddenly. She had thought that it would be good if she could live in the 100,000 mountain range. After all, the Sea Tribe and their fates weren't something they could control. But everything happened too fast. A war broke out just like that. In just 4 years there were 2 wars and a large number of venerables died. Shimin Linglan knew that the real chaos was coming. So many venerables had died. Even if it was the sea race, they should also be in a mess. Besides, so many venerables had died. It was impossible that no ordinary creatures had died. It could be said that in the sea at this moment, there were a lot of opportunities left behind. It would be a lie to say that they didn't want to fight for them. Han Fei was still looking back in the direction of the giant King City. Shimin Linglan took a deep breath. "Idiot, let's go. We don't belong to the 100,000 mountain after all. It's time to leave." Han Fei scratched his head. "Are we coming back?" Shimin Linglan said resolutely, "Yes. When we become strong, we will come back. Chirp. As the two talked, a large number of birds of the Sky Clan broke through the sky and rushed to the sea. Shimin Linglan murmured, "Even the 100,000 mountain range is going to fight for opportunities. We can't be slow." When the two came to the seaside, they found that some spiritual plants were trying to spread into the sea. It should be noted that most spiritual plants actually couldn't enter the sea. After all, the sea and the land were two different states of life. But at this moment they were testing. Moo! Some scattered beasts were also going out to sea. The easiest one was Old Cow, who led Nyo and Nyo into the sea. At that moment, the spectacular scene of creatures entering the sea made Shimin Linglan's heart skip a beat. This was a chaotic world. Although she was not a heavenly talent like Han Fei, she was also very powerful. Han Fei clearly felt that Shimin Linglan was a little strange. The surrounding spiritual energy was gathering. Han Fei looked up and found that there was a dense aura emerging. A law enforcer? Even though Han Fei hadn't awakened his spiritual sense, he could still make a clear judgment. Immediately, Han Fei set up a spirit-gathering array and tried to absorb spiritual energy from all directions. Shimin Linglan stood on the edge of the cliff, and many scenes appeared in her mind. The scene where her spiritual heritage was extracted, the scene where her mother died, the scene where she was kicked out of the Shimin family, the moment when she decided to take Han Fei to the remote wilderness jungle with her. Countless moments of life and death. What was it for? The spiritual energy vortex condensed, and Shimin Linglan's upper body floated in the air. Her aura kept rising. At that moment, Han Fei felt a sense of unwillingness, resentment, and strong killing intent. After a full hour, two machetes appeared next to Shimin Linglan's hands. They were illusory and strange, full of killing intent. Shimin Linglan's voice was cold. "Law Enforcer. Blade of Vengeance." Han Fei felt that Shimin Linglan had changed at this moment. In the past, Shimin Linglan didn't have a chance. Therefore, Shimin Linglan was the stubborn Shimin Linglan who only knew how to shout. But at this moment, after 5 years in the remote wilderness jungle and 4 years in the 100,000 mountains, she was qualified to take revenge. Shimin Linglan looked at Han Fei and grinned. "When I finish this journey, we'll go back to the 100,000 mountains and never leave again." 1 month later. City of Yu. Everyone, including the great desolate village, went out to sea to search for treasures. Countless people found that the ordinary creatures in the sea were getting stronger. It was time for them to fight. Outside City of Yu, there were many deep-sea ports with ships. Every day, ships of all sizes went out to sea more than 100,000 times. The resource-plundering war had begun. In the outer sea, there was a medium-sized ship with a hull of only 100 meters. On the ship, there were more than 30 hidden fishers and 3 law enforcers. At this moment, a law enforcer shouted, "Have you found it? The remains of the Tao-seeking state sea monsters must be nearby. Attention, everyone, 5 people in a group. Explore the surrounding 500 kilometers. Remember to pay attention to any traces of arrays. If these strong masters didn't die directly, they would protect you. Don't be careless." Suddenly, a law enforcer said, "Wait a minute, I sense 2 people, 2 law enforcers." The corners of a young man's mouth curled up. "Surrounded. Since they didn't find us, it means that their strength is not beyond the realm of intermediate law enforcers. 2 people dare to look for Tao-seeking state sea monsters? They are really brave. Brothers, surround them. Maybe they have found a way out." Another law enforcer licked the corner of his mouth. "The 3 of us will stall these 2 first. The others, when the battle starts, immediately surround them. On the other side." Shimin Linglan looked at Han Fei. "Idiot, are they here?" Han Fei scratched his head. "Are they here? Attack them?" Shimin Linglan said, "Attack them all. This is the Shimin family's ship. I've been looking for it for a month and finally found it. I can't let it go." When Shimin Linglan left, she was still a child. Now, nearly 10 years had passed, and she had grown into a tall and fierce girl. The newcomers were extremely fast. They crossed 100 kilometers in the blink of an eye. The young man in luxurious clothes said arrogantly, "What are you looking for? Tell us and we will help you find it." The other put down the armor box. "Hey, you dare to go to sea with just 2 people? Well, hand over all your resources and we can let you go. After all, we are all human beings. We are very open-minded." Their eyes fell directly on Shimin Linglon. Because Han Fei was too ordinary, and his eyes were dull, they thought he must have been scared. Suddenly, the figure of the extremely ordinary young man shook slightly, and a person appeared in his hand out of thin air. The man's arms had been broken and his neck was grabbed by Han Fei, hanging in the air. He was already half disabled. The expressions of the young man and the armorist changed drastically. How was it possible? How could an intermediate law enforcer instantly fall into the hands of the young man? Crack, crack. At this moment, the sound of bones breaking came from afar. What? How is it possible? The two of them were shocked. When did the battle start? When did it stop? Why was there no trace at all? The sound of bones breaking didn't come until their companion was disabled. Are you kidding me? Shimin Linglon's eyes were cold, and 2 machetes appeared in her hands. Shimin Lianfeng, your memory seems to be bad. The young man's face changed greatly. Who are you? You know that we are from the Shimin family of Yu City, but you still dare to attack us? Do you know that if one of us escapes from my ship, you won't be able to escape? Ha ha. Ha ha. Shimin Linglon's voice was low and deep. She sounded like a big sister with an evil aura. Her indifferent voice was cold and murderous. My brothers, don't you recognize me? I am Shimin Linglon. Shimin Linglon? Shimin Yu and Shimin Lianfeng looked at each other with astonishment written all over their faces. Shimin Yu's eyes narrowed. You're not dead yet? Shimin Linglon said leisurely. My 2 good brothers, do you want me to die so badly? Oh, when I had the spirit meridian, you complimented me a lot and even bought me a lot of delicious food. However, after that, you forced my mother to give me her spirit meridian and forced her to die, didn't you? Shimin Yu was shocked. He quickly retreated and shouted, "Run!" However, before Shimin Yu could retreat more than half a meter, he felt his scalp go numb. It was as if a terrifying attack was coming. Then, he felt as if he had been hit by a mountain. His spine was broken. Roar! Shimin Lianfeng was prepared to run with Shimin Yu. He wanted to use the torrent of swords and sabers to stall the 2 of them for a while, and buy himself a chance. However, before he could open his armor box, it was pressed down by a hand. Then, he felt that half of his body was completely paralyzed. Half of his bones seemed to be broken, and he lay directly on the sea. It was too fast. Shimin Linglon's eyes were a little resentful. In fact, she wanted to take action herself, although it might take her a while to fight. However, she didn't tell Han Fei in advance. And Han Fei just felt that the other party was a threat, so he took him down easily. At this point, all 3 of them were lying on the ground. The total time of the battle was less than 1 second. But Han Fei didn't kill them because Shimin Linglon didn't tell him. At this moment, he grabbed the legs of these 2 people and dragged them towards Shimin Linglon, just like how Big Ape dragged him. Shimin Yu and Shimin Lianfeng were stunned. What happened just now? They didn't know. Anyway, they were lying on the ground. It was even faster than summoning their spiritual beasts. Is this guy an explorer? Shimin Linglon smiled bitterly and said coquettishly, Idiot, leave one for me. Han Fei left the 2 of them, chuckled, and scratched his head with his hand. Shimin Linglon smiled at Han Fei helplessly, then lowered her head and squatted down. You should have killed me too. Shimin Yu said in horror, Linglon, you know this has nothing to do with us. It's Shimin Lai. He ordered everything. I'm your brother. Why would I want to kill you? Shimin Lianfeng also calmed down and was also frightened. Linglon, let us go. If you want revenge, I'll help you. Puff! The scimitar slashed angrily, devouring souls. A horrified phantom disappeared into Shaman Lingland's scimitar. This was the blade of vengeance. The path of vengeance was to kill those who deserved to be killed and destroy their souls. It was extremely cruel. Seeing this scene, Shaman Yu shouted in horror, "Shaman Linglan, you can't kill me. I can give you whatever you want, anything. I'll snatch it. Now it's a chaotic world. I'll snatch it for you." However, Shaman Lingland's scimitar had already pierced into Shaman Yu's body, and she said calmly, "There shouldn't be big clans in this world. Cultivation, just cultivate. Why do we need those filthy big clans? I know you too well. If you turn around, you'll go back and tell the old man in your clan, right? Besides, you're too weak." Puff! The remaining hunter was terrified. "I'm not from the Shaman family. I'm just, Puff." Shaman Linglan didn't even listen to him. She killed him and then said, "I have to let people know. From now on, anyone who dares to be with the Shaman family will die." In the distance, the hidden fishers who had just rushed over were stunned. How long had it been? 3 law enforcers were gone? Many people fled in panic. However, Shaman Linglan didn't chase them. These people would spread the news. After doing all this, Shaman Lingland's hands were a little trembling. She turned around, looked at Han Fei, and buried her head in Han Fei's chest. "Idiot, do I look like a bad guy at this moment?" Han Fei could feel that Shaman Lingland's body was trembling slightly. She seemed to be very sad. He reached out and rubbed Shaman Lingland's head. Soon after, the sound of crying was heard, rippling on the quiet sea. On the Shaman family's ship, more than 20 hidden fishers were controlling the ship to escape. There was an array on the ship, which had been fully activated at this moment to prevent Han Fei and Shaman Linglan from attacking. There were also more than 10 people who were not from the Shaman family, so they directly fled in different directions. They rolled their eyes. If such strong masters jumped over the ship, not to mention running away, they would all die. It wasn't until they were 2,000 kilometers away that the people on the ship all breathed a sigh of relief. It was too terrifying. The 3 law enforcers were killed before there was even any commotion from the battle. Someone shouted, "Go back quickly. Don't hunt for treasures anymore." They even dare to attack the people of the Shaman family. The outer sea is no longer safe. As soon as this person said so, he suddenly raised his head and saw a man and a woman standing on the mast. F***ck, the man shrieked, "Run, quick!" In the blink of an eye, the group of hidden fishers abandoned the ship and directly jumped off. It wasn't until they rushed far away that someone looked back in fear. Seeing that no one was chasing them, he roared, F***ck, how did they pass the ship formation? I didn't feel anything at all. What kind of strong masters are those 2 people? The Shaman family was in an uproar. 2 heavenly talents of the family were killed in the outer sea in full view of everyone. How could they not be angry? Bastard, who the hell are they? You bastards, why did you run away without even letting me know who they are? Master, they are too strong. We can't match them at all. Bam! The man was slapped away, and a middle-aged man suddenly stood up. Do you all think that anyone can bully our Shaman family now that our patriarch is injured? Third brother, go and find them yourself. I don't believe that in the end. Who has the guts to ride on my Shaman clan's horses? An elegant man got up. Leave it to me. Even if I encounter an explorer-level powerhouse, they may not be able to stop me if I want to come back. 3 days later, a scholarly man and as many as 8 law enforcers stood on an empty ship. The group of people stared at the words on the sail, frowning. The 4 big words, "Blood for Blood," were written on the sail, and it was signed by Shaman Linglan. Third Master, this must be a trick played by someone with ulterior motives, right? Yes, Third Master, how could it be Shaman Linglan? Her mother only has a level 5 high-quality spiritual heritage. If we give it to her, she will only be demoted, not upgraded. Besides, it's been less than 10 years. It's impossible for her to become a law enforcer. The middle-aged man shook his head slightly. Not necessarily. Didn't they say it was a man and a woman? Maybe that woman has found a backer. In this vast sea, it was not easy to find two people. The point was that they didn't even have a ship. They were too mobile. If they were two ordinary people, it would be fine. However, these two people had learned the heavenly void divine walking technique. If they really wanted to sneak attack, the people of the Fisherman family would have to stop going to the sea. Half a month later, on a 1,000-meter-long ship of the Fisherman family, 4 junior law enforcers, 2 intermediate law enforcers, 2 advanced law enforcers, and more than 30 hidden fishers were all killed. In the end, none of those who were let go was surnamed Fisherman. As soon as this matter came out, City was in turmoil. This matter had already become the hottest topic among treasure hunters. Someone sighed. The Fisherman family, who did they provoke? Obviously, they didn't come with good intentions. 8 law enforcers were killed just like that. How long will it take to train them? Someone shook his head. This matter is probably related to the internal disputes of those big clans. See, this is definitely not the last time. Someone sneered. That's good. The resources have all been robbed by those big clans. Why don't we pretend to be them? In fact, there were not many people who were really vigilant in times of peace. Although the battle between the Venerables had been settled for 500 years. However, the internal battles of the big clans had never stopped. Therefore, for many days in a row, almost all the ships guarded by the Fisherman family's strong masters were slaughtered. Every time a ship was slaughtered, the words "blood for blood" would be left on the sail, and the signature would be Fisherman Linglon. Another half a month later, Fisherman Linglon was standing on a ship of the Fisherman family that had been slaughtered. More than 130 people on the ship were all killed. Most importantly, a peak-level law enforcer was slaughtered. Fisherman Linglon knew that person, the third butler of the Fisherman family. 10 years ago, he had already become a peak-level law enforcer. This time, he probably came out to find someone. Fisherman Linglon snorted angrily. These damn bastards, I didn't do it. However, they deserve it. Evil big clans. Han Fei looked at the words on the sail and scratched his head. Fisherman Linglon's expression changed. A peak-level law enforcer died. It must be the work of an explorer. We were used. I'm afraid this time, the Fisherman family will send out all the strong masters. Suddenly, Han Fei pinched his fingers subconsciously. Almost in an instant, Han Fei grabbed Fisherman Linglon and left. His speed was extremely fast. He activated the demonic transformation, the phantom glass wings, the agility of wind, and the heavenly ethereal godly movement art. In the next second, a middle-aged man tore through the void and looked at this scene coldly. Then his eyes flickered and he looked in the direction where Han Fei and the others left. Good, good, good. I want to see who it is. Amidst the storm, Fisherman Linglon said, Idiot, we are still weak now. Although you are very strong, we are still no match for an explorer-level powerhouse. So, I want to go into the deep sea. Han Fei chuckled. All right. Fisherman Linglon let out a long sigh. Idiot, you only know how to say yes. Going to the deep sea was still very dangerous. Although the battle between the Venerables had just erupted, and too many oceanic clan powerhouses had fallen, however, it didn't mean that the Sea Tribe had retreated. We are, in fact, gambling. For some reason, Han Fei subconsciously pinched his fingers and chuckled. Let's do it. Fisherman Linglon smiled. All right. Let's take a gamble. I didn't expect that even revenge would be used by others. Since we can't take revenge ourselves, let's bet that we will become strong and seek the Tao. The third chapter. This is the 4th day in a row. In the past few days, I have an average daily average of 20,000 words. This month, my scalp is numb. I will leave in about 3 days. Very soon, end of this chapter. Chapter 1131. 18 years later. A large, ragged ship riddled with holes was sprinting tenaciously in a stormy sea. Under this storm, the sky was dark, and every time lightning fell, illuminating the night. Lightning would often strike the ship, but every time that happened, a strange array would appear, and not a single bolt of lightning could penetrate the array. A domineering woman, stepping on the bow of the ship, shouted proudly, "Charge at this strange place!" Someone cursed, F***ck, "What the hell is this place? I've never heard of such a terrible place in the outer waters." Someone was horrified. "It's too terrible. That sea demon was blown to death just now. That was a Tao-seeking state demon." And on the top of the mast, a silly boy stood, looking at the lightning in the sky, and subconsciously said, "A forbidden place?" It was not until the early morning of the next day that the ship rushed out of the storm. In the morning, the first rays of dawn shone and the sky was clear. There were about 20 people on the boat, all of them extremely fierce and ferocious. Each of them had a fierce look on their faces as they surrounded a few cauldrons and ate heartily. Among these people, there were only 2 exceptions. They often ate alone. He saw that Han Fei was flying in the air, holding a big brush in his hand and drawing pictures. "Good. Commander Han, when it comes to painting, I'm not convinced by anyone but you." "General Han, I'm afraid no one in the entire U City can draw such a creative picture." "Good job." Han Fei seemed to be used to these arrogant shouts, so he was not moved. He was still drawing his picture carefully. Those pictures were composed of all kinds of lines, mysterious and complicated. Only the big flag at the top was different. On it, there was a skull pattern with a sailor hat, a red turban, and 2 machetes crossed, which was also drawn by Han Fei. "General Han, when are we going back to U City? With your ability, it's definitely not a problem for you to kill those 2 explorers." "General Han," suddenly, Han Fei glanced at the sea and disappeared. Then the waves surged, and a translucent starfish was grabbed out by him. Rip! A peak-level law enforcer starfish was torn apart by Han Fei's hands without even a chance to fight back. Everyone was stunned for a moment and then burst into laughter. "We have to have more food. There are starfish to eat." Someone muttered, "I prefer the mussel. It's meaty." Someone spat, "Of course it's lobster. It's fragrant." Someone yelled, "Get lost. Stir-fried octopus will be the first to object." Just as the group was discussing what kind of food was delicious, they suddenly heard a cold shout. "Eat! You bunch of foodies! Go hunt for me! There's nothing to do all day and you're just bragging." The group of old men shrank their necks and jumped into the sea with a whoosh. The few people who didn't have time to jump quickly turned around and looked at the fierce woman with flattering eyes. "Captain, you're up? You're up early." "Captain, what do you want for breakfast? Shall I get it for you? Get the hell out of here. Go prepare some resources. This time, our target is U City." Buzz buzz buzz. The group of people trembled. Someone grinned and said, "Ha ha ha, are we finally going to U City? F***ck, we've been waiting for this day for a long time." Many people popped their heads out of the sea. "We've been waiting for this day for a long time. Those big families in U City, just you wait." Someone said with a fierce look, F***cku. "Destroy the West Gate first, then the East Gate, then Sun Yang." These people were picked up by Han Fei and Shimen Linglan in the outer sea or the deep sea. Yes, they were picked up by Han Fei and Shimen Linglan. All of them had a certain level of power, but they were forced by the aristocratic families to leave their homes. They had no choice but to go into the deep sea and search for good fortune. They would one day rule the city of Yu and kill their enemies with their own hand. Of course, the result was always the opposite of what they expected. The deep sea was too dangerous. Who knew how many people like them had died? After meeting Han Fei and Shimen Linglan, they found an organization and joined the Avengers. After so many years of fighting in the sea, these people were all murderers. The weakest one was an intermediate law enforcer. He had been wanting to go back to U City for a long time. However, they also knew that law enforcers couldn't do anything in U City. Only explorers could do that. However, The only explorer on the Avengers was the captain of the Avengers, Shimin Linglon. The other one was also the one these people admired the most and treated sincerely. That was Han Fei. Whenever Han Fei attacked, he always gave them a feeling that he was ridiculously strong. Although Han Fei was only an intermediate peak-level law enforcer, he could easily tear peak-level law enforcers apart. They even suspected that with Han Fei's strength, even an explorer might not be able to defeat him. After driving away these crew members, Shimin Linglon smiled sweetly at Han Fei. "Idiot, it's time to eat. I made fish soup for you." "Ha ha." Han Fei threw away the starfish in his hand and appeared in front of Shimin Linglon with a swish. In the cabin, Shimin Linglon gave Han Fei a bowl of fish soup. She had long been used to the way of life when she was in the remote wild forest. She had to eat more. They were all high-level creatures and very nutritious. It was good for her health. Slurp, slurp. Han Fei gulped down the soup, but Shimin Linglon didn't eat. Instead, she held her chin and looked at Han Fei. "Idiot, don't you want to ask why I went back?" Han Fei grinned and shook his head slightly. Shimin Linglon pouted. "You've always been like this. You don't ask anything and just listen to me. Sometimes I don't know how to choose. You can't hold on any longer, can you?" Slurp. Han Fei scratched his head and tilted his head to look at Shimin Linglon. "Yes." Shimin Linglon sighed. "I don't know why the Beast King doesn't let you cultivate. However, he must have his reasons. It's been 8 years since you broke the 3rd level of your strange body tempering technique. Recently, when you sleep, there will be energy escaping from your body. Are you about to break the 4th level?" Han Fei shook his head with a silly smile. "I don't know." Shimin Linglon curled her lips. "I don't know why, but after going to sea with you for so many years, I always feel that I'm very lucky. Whatever good things happen to me, it's always my turn. I even encountered the remains of 3 venerable realm sea demons in a row. I believe that you are a man of great luck. So, I think it's time to go back." Han Fei looked at Shimin Linglon. Okay, I'll eat." While eating, Shimin Linglon suddenly said playfully, "Idiot, I guess we can probably get half of our revenge. After all, we can't beat the Venerables. However, we can get half of our revenge first. After we get our revenge, let's go to the 100,000 mountains, okay?" Han Fei's eyes lit up. "Okay." Shimin Linglon smiled. "I also want to go back. Although the Beast King doesn't like me very much, I still like the life there. Should we prepare some gifts for them? Well, let's bring a lot of seasonings back, okay?" Han Fei nodded. "Okay." Shimin Linglon said, "Idiot, after we get our revenge, let's have a child, okay? After we get our revenge, let's have a child, okay?" Han Fei was stunned for a moment and scratched his head. "A child? Whose child can be given to us?" Shimin Linglon blushed. "I mean, let's have a child together." Han Fei shook his head. "Even if we have a child together, they can't give it to us." Shimin Linglon was speechless. "Forget it, I don't want one. If we have a child like this, I'm afraid that the child will also be retarded." For 18 years, neither human beings nor the 100,000 mountains had given up looking for the thing that could save the world. For 18 years, the real murderer of the Shimin family's tragedy had never been caught. On the contrary, in the battle that year, half of the Shimin family's law enforcers died, which was a heavy loss. Later, they fought several times with other big clans and more than a dozen law enforcers died. Fortunately, the Shimin family was a big family and had trained a batch of new people in recent years. Gradually, no one talked about what happened in the past anymore. On this day, the wind was gentle and the clouds were rolling in the sky. The offshore area had become the trial field of U-City. Within 10,000 kilometers, it was no longer the outer sea. No matter how deep it was, there were big ships. Although the Sea Clan retreated, the demon beasts in the sea were still rampant. Occasionally, there were even explorer-level creatures shuttling through the sea of about 50,000 kilometers. This also showed that, in fact, the Sea Clan had not given up the area of U City and the 100,000 mountains. Therefore, those explorer-level creatures actually came with a purpose. But this day, it was not marine creatures that came. From the depths of the sea, a big ship sailed over. Although the big ship was broken, it was as black as ink. The most eye-catching thing was the big flag hanging in the sky above the mast. On the flag, there was a skeleton with 2 knives, as if it was laughing at the world. Looking at the big sails, the lines on the sails were strange, and strange array patterns were engraved on them. On the hull and even on every deck, there were such array patterns. These were all places that Han Fei had used to paint in the past 18 years, when he had nothing to do. He had drawn the entire ship, not even leaving out the cabin. Shimin Linglan had always let Han Fei do whatever he wanted. When she became an explorer, a lightning tribulation fell from the sky, and this big ship, the Avenger, helped her block almost 60% of the lightning tribulation with the dense array patterns. At that moment, Shimin Linglan finally realized how terrifying Han Fei's carvings on the ship were. It was also because of that tribulation that the ship had ended up in such a dilapidated state. But there were also benefits. After being struck by the lightning tribulation, this ship seemed to come back to life. All the wood on the ship became lightning-struck wood. The quality had been improved by several levels. In order to prevent accidents, the human race would patrol the outer sea. Most of them were from the big families of U City, because ordinary people didn't have the ability to do so. The reason why the big families did this was to protect their own interests. After all, if they didn't rule the bottom, what could they rule? Besides, the structure of the strong was a pyramid structure. The strong were also selected from hundreds of millions of people. Therefore, this foundation couldn't be broken. Shimin Linglan stepped on the bow of the ship. Suddenly, she heard a voice in the air. "Who are you? Is it a ship from Blackrock City?" Shimin Linglan didn't even bother with this person. She sent a telepathic message. "Continue forward." A moment later, a 1,000-meter-long ship appeared with 2 escort ships. In the air, an explorer blocked the way. "Everyone, what do you mean?" Shimin Linglan didn't answer. Instead, she turned her head and looked behind her. "Does anyone know me?" More than 20 people rose into the air. One of them, a fierce-looking man, grinned and said, "Oh, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this Dongfang Yu, the 7th master of the Dongfang family in U City? What's going on? 7th master is patrolling the borders now?" Dongfang Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. "Jiao Wuxing, you're not dead yet?" The big man laughed out loud. "Thanks to the Dongfang family, I'm not dead. Not only did I not die, but I also survived. I even got a chance and became a peak-level law enforcer. Dongfang Yu, are you the only one patrolling the border?" Dongfang Yu narrowed her eyes. The enemy's lineup was so strong. 1 explorer and 21 law enforcers. Among them, there were only 3 mid-level law enforcers and 12 peak-level law enforcers. If there was only 1 explorer and 21 high-level law enforcers, Dongfang Yu wouldn't be surprised. After all, any big family could mobilize such a lineup. However, 12 peak-level law enforcers were equivalent to all the top-level law enforcers in a family. In a sense, the people on this ship were enough to form a medium-sized force in U City. However, Dongfang Yu frowned. "So, you're here for revenge?" She saw the enforcers appearing from the big ship and the 2 escort ships in the distance. Among them, there were 4 peak-level law enforcers, 7 high-level law enforcers, 11 mid-level law enforcers, and almost 30 beginner law enforcers. The people patrolling the border were very strong. Otherwise, if they encountered a powerful cultivator, they wouldn't be able to deal with them. With Dongfang Yu's lineup and the array formation on the ship, even if a high-level explorer came, they would be able to hold them off for a while. However, they didn't need it now. The people patrolling the border were all mixed teams sent by the big families in U City. At the same time, there were at least 4 or 5 teams like Dongfang Yu's in the waters outside U City. Dongfang Yu sneered. 1 peak-level law enforcer and 12 peak-level law enforcers want to come back for revenge? The woman in the lead, are you also an enemy of the Dongfang family? Shimin Linglan's gaze was cold. She didn't answer his question. Instead, she said indifferently, Jia Wuxing, is this person guilty? Jia Wuxing smiled sinisterly. Of course. My Jia family forged a top-grade divine weapon. Just as we were about to take off, the Dongfang family killed 17 members of my Jia family. I was the only one who survived. Hey Dongfang Yu, you were one of them, right? Dongfang Yu sneered. A good weapon depends on the person using it. An innocent man will get into trouble because of his wealth. Don't you understand this logic? Jia Wuxing shrugged. Captain, look. You didn't even refute it. You just admitted it. Shimin Linglan looked up at Dongfang Yu and said, Kill them. Swoosh. Swoosh. The Avengers started charging forward. However, no one got off the ship. Instead, it rammed into the enemy's big ship. Dongfang Yu's eyes turned cold. Who the F***ck is this woman? You want to fight and kill her just because of this? Weren't the great clans always very cautious in their actions and the path of the strong? You're also an explorer. Don't you understand this logic? Dongfang Yu shouted in a low voice, You're asking for death. Attack. In an instant, the sky was filled with all kinds of spiritual beasts. The Avenger was surrounded by all kinds of lights. However, Dongfang Yu clearly felt that one person was missing from the Avenger. He was puzzled. Why were there only 2 of the 3 mid-level law enforcers left? Puff. Boom. Almost at the same time when they summoned their spiritual beasts, one of the top-level law enforcers suddenly felt a sense of danger. He used his mind and armor appeared on his body. However, a hand had already pierced into his chest. A terrifying energy exploded. The top-level law enforcer died instantly. That wasn't all. Immediately after that, another top-level law enforcer who had just put on his armor and his spiritual plant had just appeared. A big stick struck down. The shadow of the stick was like a knife, shining brightly. She died again before she could even use her power of law. Dongfang Yu's reaction was extremely fast. At this time, she didn't have time to think about why an intermediate law enforcer was so strong. It was more important to save people. However, before he arrived, the void shook and Han Fei's figure had already disappeared. This time, the target he chose was a spirit gatherer. This spirit gatherer had already realized his situation. Then he opened a fish skin map, which was the defensive array he had already prepared. But then the void flashed, and he was shocked to find that Han Fei had actually crossed the defensive array and appeared directly in front of him. With one blow, this peak-level law enforcer died. Dongfang Yu panicked. Are you F***king telling me that this is an intermediate law enforcer? Dongfang Yu came halfway and slashed out 2 soul-sucking knife lights. The saber light was sinister and strange. All sorts of illusory faces appeared. A horrifying and evil aura enveloped the area, creating an ominous atmosphere. Shimin Linglan's indifferent voice sounded. Your opponent is me. After Shimin Linglan and Han Fei both attacked, the 12 peak-level law enforcers on the Avenger rushed out at the same time, full of murderous intent. The rest of the people on the ship did not leave, but they were also shouting, An intermediate explorer wants to stop us? I'm afraid I'm dreaming. Oh. With a roar, the peak-level law enforcer who was trying to escape suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood, and his secret technique was directly broken. The next moment, hammer shadows fell from the sky. Clang, clang, clang. The power of 3 hammers directly bombarded. Good. Commander Han is fierce. Ha ha ha. You want to run away from Commander Han? What are you thinking? At this time, although Han Fei was only an intermediate peak-level law enforcer, the effect of the secret technique had been greatly reduced. However, the power after the secret technique was still more than 50 waves, comparable to a peak-level law enforcer at the top level. Not only that, after having the power, Han Fei also had unparalleled speed. If Han Fei's soul sense was still sober, he would definitely know that the two strange techniques mastered by the Yi family of the Thousand Star City were none other than the heavenly illusionary divine walk and the revolving star passage, which were obtained from the Sky Clan. However, at this moment, Han Fei's speed had already far surpassed that of the Yi family. Not only did he know these two techniques, but he also had the phantom glass wings and the secret technique. In this way, Han Fei almost killed 5 peak-level law enforcers in an instant. In the end, one of them only had time to escape back to the ship. But for the revolving star passage, unless there was a high-level sealing array that even sealed the space, it was impossible to stop Han Fei. Therefore, the scene that shocked the border patrol powerhouses appeared. Like a flash of light, Han Fei appeared in the formation of ships. With just a roar, he killed a peak-level law enforcer. Seeing him, fear spread in everyone's heart. All the peak-level law enforcers were dead, and Han Fei didn't touch any of the others, leaving them all to the murderous ruffians on the Avengers. Dongfang Yu intended to tear the space to escape, because these people's means were really amazing. If someone had told him before that an intermediate law enforcer could kill 5 peak-level law enforcers in 3 seconds, he wouldn't have believed it. But now, he saw it with his own eyes. With that kind of power and speed, that person might even be able to fight against an explorer. However, Dongfang Yu couldn't escape, because this woman with a weird scimitar was equally terrifying. There seemed to be endless resentful souls on her twin scimitars, which went straight to her soul. Not only that, this woman's speed was also extremely fast, even far faster than her own. Besides, what the hell was her gifted soul? Dongfang Yu couldn't see Shimin Linglan's spiritual beast at all, only a black mist. In the mist, there was a pair of scarlet eyes. He had never heard of such a spiritual beast. Puff, 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 clang, clang, clang. The void collided more than 1,000 times in an instant. Dongfang Yu opened a void crack several times, but there was no way to escape. On the contrary, every time he tried to escape through the void, there would be an opportunity for him to take a saber strike. Dongfang Yu roared. He saw the young man with dull eyes standing proudly in the void. Although he didn't attack, he actually felt a strong sense of threat from the young man. Dongfang Yu gritted his teeth, and a jade conch phantom condensed. Who the hell are you? In the void, their speed became faster and faster, so fast that Dongfang Yu couldn't react. Shimin Linglan's voice rippled. Who are we? We are a group of people who seek revenge. My name is Shimin Linglan. Dongfang Yu's body trembled. This name was so King familiar. In the past, a large group of people intercepted the people of the Shimin family, and they all left Shimin Linglan's name. Son of AB TCA. Now the real person was back, and he was so strong. Above Dongfang Yu's jade conch, black smoke billowed. He was shocked to find that his soul couldn't resist the erosion of this strange power. If this went on, he would definitely die. Ha! Jade gate lock. Swish, swish, swish. Shadows of doors appeared one after another, as if they were going to lock Shimin Linglan inside. Roar! However, before Dongfang Yu finished this scene, she saw a big ape more than 30 meters tall appear on the sea, holding a big stick and smashing down. Roar! With that roar, the shadows of hundreds of beasts stepped in the void, directly making Dongfang Yu's soul stagnate. After using the Beast King's technique, Han Fei's strength doubled, far exceeding the strength that a peak-level law enforcer should have. The stick was shocking and directly smashed through a door. What? The power of an explorer! Is this a secret art of the Beastmen? Soul-severing. Shimin Linglan's daggers were like a dark moon. They pierced into Dongfang Yu's body. Ka. At that moment, the jade door shattered, and the surrounding raging waves surged to the heavens. On the Avenger, everyone sighed. Every time they saw Han Fei transform, they were horrified. That thing was really too strong. Had he ever seen a middle-level enforcer or a club-wielding explorer before? Now it had really happened. Although Han Fei was only an explorer after using the Beast King's technique, he could still restrict Dongfang Yu with the help of the soul-suppressing roar of beasts. Of course, if it was an advanced explorer, it would be a different situation. But for now it was enough. Shimin Linglan's attack was successful. Dongfang Yu felt as if her soul was being bitten by thousands of souls. The battle between the strong only lasted for a moment. Before Dongfang Yu could react, the two curved blades pierced through her body like wheels. Han Fei's Monkey King 3000 cudgels smashed down crazily. Dang, dang, dang could be heard without end. In just over 100 breaths, Dongfang Yu had fallen. First update. Asking for votes. End of chapter. Chapter 1132. Run. In fact, at the moment when the Jade Gate was shattered, those patrolling law enforcers had already begun to flee for their lives. Those law enforcers of the Avenger were killing everywhere. The battle was F*King over. The group of people who hadn't taken action yet were trembling. The cooperation between Captain and General Han is so F*King terrifying. The other side's law enforcers all abandoned the ship and fled. After all, with Han Fei's weird footwork, the ship array couldn't stop him at all. Who dared to run to the ship? At this moment, before the Avenger hit the big black ship, Shimin Linglan shouted, "Don't hit it. We have already won." However, at this moment the Avenger was about to hit it. On the ship, the people at the helm were speechless. How the F*CK, did I know you would fight so fast? Someone roared, "No, it's too late. Hit the small one, hit the small one." Rumble. The two sides collided, the array exploded, and huge waves rolled. A big ship of more than 300 meters was smashed into pieces by the Avenger. Someone hurriedly shouted, "Captain, I didn't mean to. It's too late." Someone kicked him. "Can't you F*King slow down? Do you not believe in the strength of Captain and General Han, or what?" Someone shouted, "There's no lunch for you at noon. You can eat sashimi." The man drooped his head and muttered in his heart, "Captain asked me to hit it." The ape turned into a human again. Shimin Linglan took out Dongfang Yu's Sun Moon shell, narrowed her eyes, and quickly looked at Han Fei. "There's so much spirit awakening fluid. Do you still want to try it?" At first, Han Fei didn't try to awaken a spiritual beast. At that time, there was no spirit awakening fluid. But after leaving the 100,000 mountains, they got a lot of spirit awakening fluid. However, no matter how much Han Fei swallowed, he couldn't awaken a spiritual beast. Not only a spiritual beast, but also a contractual spiritual beast, not even one. This made Shimin Linglan wonder, what's wrong with Han Fei? Is it because he missed the best time? Han Fei scratched his head. "It's useless to drink it." Shimin Linglan shrugged. "Indeed, it's useless to drink it. She was used to it." Shimin Linglan pursed her lips and said, "Then there's nothing good. It's much worse than the treasures we found last time." Someone was preparing to come back. When he heard Shimin Linglan's words, he stumbled and fell into the sea. The man was speechless. "Captain, can't you be more careful with your words? Bringing a venerable level powerhouse over to compete with an explorer? Are you serious?" Shimin Linglan shouted, "Jia Wuxing, it's yours." As she spoke, Shimin Linglan threw the Sun Moon shell over. Because at this moment, Jia Wuxing's body was trembling with excitement. He didn't expect that as soon as he came back, he would get a part of his revenge. Deep in his heart, he wanted to kill the entire Dongfang family. However, he also knew that he did not have the ability to do so. Even if the entire Avenger was deployed, it might not be enough. Han Fei tilted his head and looked at the burly man standing in the void. "Something's wrong." Shimin Linglan leaned against Han Fei and said softly, "Idiot, you don't understand. That feeling of revenge, from pleasure to depression, to untie the knot in his heart, and then to an even bigger knot in his heart. The constantly magnifying desire for power. In short, it's very complicated. He's about to make a breakthrough. Our Avenger is about to have a second explorer. Han Fei was slightly surprised and opened his mouth. Path, Shimin Linglong smiled. She pointed at the Avenger and said, "They all know where the road is. In fact, it's not that difficult to become an explorer. The difficult part is how to enter the Tao." Han Fei scratched his head. "I don't understand." Shimin Linglong pulled Han Fei to the Avenger. "You don't have to understand. Maybe the Tao is in your head." After a while, they cleaned up the mess. Under the gaze of more than 20 people, Jia Wuxing's body was wrapped in endless energy and power. The Avenger had already sailed below Jia Wuxing. There was no one on the Avenger. Otherwise, it would only attract more troublesome heavenly tribulations. Someone cursed, "I'm so angry. Old Jia is so King lucky. As soon as he comes back, he can make a breakthrough and become an explorer." Someone said with a hopeful face, "I want that too. Who doesn't? I'm not as lucky as this guy." Someone grinned and said, "How many heavenly tribulations can our Avenger survive?" Shimin Linglong said lightly, "From the first heavenly tribulation, the Avenger will not be destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. In short, no matter how bad it is, it will only get stronger and stronger." Suddenly, everyone looked up. Clouds rolled in all directions and thunder rumbled, as if a huge vortex had appeared in the sky. Han Fei looked at Shimin Linglong and said hesitantly, "It's not big." Puff. Hiss. However, the group of people rolled their eyes, speechless. "General Han, old Jia's heavenly tribulation is not big, but we can't compare everyone to the captain." Someone smiled and said, "General Han, when you are going to undergo the heavenly tribulation, I'm afraid you'll have to get a few more Avenger." Someone thought for a moment. "When the time comes, we can each rob a ship. I think 20 Avengers will be enough." Hearing this, Shimin Linglong tilted her head and looked at Han Fei. "I think it makes sense. Why don't we do this in the future?" In fact, Shimin Linglong had long thought that when Han Fei underwent the heavenly tribulation would be even more terrifying. It was better to nip it in the bud. She took this suggestion to heart. Han Fei scratched his head. "Okay." Boom! The sky exploded and blue lightning fell. In an instant, a suit of armor floated in the air. Jia Wuxing stabbed the sky with his spear, and the divine weapon exploded in the lightning. Rip! A fish skin map was torn open, which was the great plate turtle array drawn by Han Fei. Everyone here had it. The big array hovered, and the old turtle lay on the ground. But the array was opened and broken quickly. Crack, crack, crack! In an instant, dozens of arrays were smashed, but the power of the lightning was reduced by nearly 40%. Ho! Jia Wuxing was struck by the lightning. He only lasted for half a minute before he fell on the ship, electric currents surging on his body. The lightning struck the entire Avenger, causing electric arcs to flicker. However, at this moment, the big array was fully opened, and a large number of electric arcs fell into the ocean. Although layers of arrays were broken one after another, they were too weak to continue and disappeared. Jia Wuxing roared, rose from the ground again, and looked at Han Fei and the others. "This thing is awesome. Luckily, I'm strong and have an amazing physique. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been blasted into pieces." Boo! Suddenly, there was a lot of boos. Someone cursed, "Are you shameless? You only blocked 30% of it yourself. How dare you brag about it? Look at you, your mouth and nose are bleeding, and your body is burnt. How dare you brag about it? Didn't the Avenger block it for you?" Someone cursed, "Bullsh *t. The second one is coming." Rumble. The second time, the same method was used. Jia Wuxing bled from his 7 orifices, and his body was cracked. At this moment, no one cursed anymore. If he survived the next one, old Jia would be an explorer. Someone shouted angrily, "Old Jia, if you can't survive it, I won't be your lord's sacrifice next year." Someone said solemnly, Old Jia, it's time to explode. As long as you don't die, General Han can cure you. Oh. Jia Wuxing was bathed in blood and his blood was burning. 3 big shields rose in the sky, 2 arrays hovered, and a secret technique was activated. Rumble! Bam! The 3rd thick bolt of lightning with a hint of blue and purple fell, breaking the arrays and shields. More than 20 places on Jia Wuxing's body had exploded, and his body was almost torn apart. His body was like a piece of charcoal, lying on the boat with his last breath. Old Jia! Hold on, old Jia! Don't King die. Everyone was rushing to the Avenger. However, Han Fei was faster than them. When Jia Wuxing hit the deck, Han Fei had already appeared. Swish! 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 The healing light of the divine healing technique was cast on Jia Wuxing one after another. After casting 7 or 8 divine healing techniques in a row, Han Fei felt that Jia Wuxing's heart was beating violently, so he stopped. Indeed, it was much easier to heal him than the mountain giant. After all, their strengths were not on the same level. Shimin Linglan also appeared and breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't easy for these people to survive for so many years. None of them had it easy. She felt that every one of them deserved to be an explorer. Shimin Linglan looked back. Okay, it's okay now. Those law enforcers had just rushed into the Avenger when they were electrocuted by the remaining power of the lightning. Being electrocuted, the group of people suddenly felt very good. Someone laughed. Hey! Do we feel the power of the heavenly tribulation in advance? Someone laughed and scolded. Feel my A**s. If you really go up there, you will be blasted into nothingness. Ha ha ha, everyone laughed. However, Shimin Linglan was very calm. It was impossible not to notice the heavenly tribulation. Not only the patrolling masters, but also the demon beasts in the sea would notice it. Shimin Linglan said, "Let's go. Take that big ship with us. I don't need it anymore." Then Shimin Linglan ran to the small ship and wrote 3 words on the long sail, Avenger. In the distance, 2 fleets were rushing towards the heavenly tribulation at full speed. Unfortunately, the sea was very big. The big ships couldn't reach it in a short time. However, only a moment later, an explorer-level powerhouse tore through the void and appeared there. 2 explorers arrived one after the other. One of them said, "Someone is going through the heavenly tribulation." The other person looked at the red words on the sail and narrowed his eyes. This technique is very familiar. However, they aren't targeting the Shimin family anymore. It might be 2 groups of people. After all, Dongfang Yu is dead. Both of them had a serious expression on their faces. Dongfang Yu was an intermediate explorer. Although she had just entered the explorer realm, she wasn't an easy target to kill. This could only mean that the people who came were very strong. They were at least advanced explorers. Shimin Linglan knew one thing very well. If they came back, they would definitely be discovered. At that moment, Shimin Linglan looked at everyone solemnly. 7 days. We only have 7 days. Our goal is to overturn the rule of the major clans in City of Yu. Therefore, in the end, all the great clans are actually our target. In these 7 days, we must let them know of our existence. Someone licked the corner of his mouth and said, "Captain, although what you said is very inspiring, this is a great goal. But isn't my strength a little too weak? Is it enough to fight stealthily?" Shimin Linglan glanced at Han Fei and said, "Within 7 days, plunder the outer sea. Our target is the 100,000 mountains." 100,000 mountains? Everyone turned their eyes to Han Fei. They had always thought that people like Han Fei should have come from the 100,000 mountains. Otherwise, how could 100 beasts appear with a single roar? However, Shimin Linglan had never told them about the 100,000 mountains. Han Fei was even less likely to tell them. Shimin Linglan looked at Han Fei. Her decision was actually not good for the 100,000 mountains. She was also making use of Han Fei. After all, the 4 venerables valued Han Fei. Teaching her was just a bonus. Because of Han Fei, the 100,000 mountains would stand on his side. It would be very unfair if the 100,000 mountain range was dragged into the conflict with the U City's great clans just for the sake of revenge. However, after thinking about it for so many years, she realized that there were external and internal troubles. In fact, he had become a villain, an unstable factor that disturbed the internal security of the human race. However, as a member of a large clan, she knew very well just how much resources the aristocratic families monopolized. If ordinary people wanted to rise, they had to fight and fight with their lives. If the descendants of aristocratic families wanted to rise, they only needed to stretch out their hand. This was especially true for those who were born into large clans. They had a lot of resources to use. Even ordinary disciples would receive a fixed amount of resources. As for those geniuses, they were given a huge amount of resources. When one's realm increased, everything would develop in a good direction through the slow process of battle experience. Her current thought was to subvert the rule of the strong. Perhaps it was because she had seen the unity of the people in the 100,000 mountains, but Shimin Linglan increasingly felt that there was something wrong with the current hegemonic rule of the humans. However, it was too difficult for her to subvert it by herself. However, once this thought appeared, it was difficult to suppress. She even guessed that this was her Tao. Therefore, even if there were some aspects that were not right, she still wanted to do it. After finalizing the plan of action, the crowd dispersed. Shimin Linglan looked at Han Fei. The external aggression is serious, but we have 500 years. I have found my Tao. I know that 500 years is too short for the top masters. However, I feel that it is very long for us. If under the rule of U City, everyone will become free people and everyone can fight for resources with their own strength. This is the general trend of the human world. It is the rise of mankind. Achieve? Han Fei looked at Shimin Linglan's determined eyes. For some reason, his heart trembled a little and he nodded heavily. Shimin Linglan had never thought that a small figure like her, who was about to give up on herself, would one day become the person who pushed the wheel of history forward. Every reform and every resistance from the bottom was accompanied by suppression or the roar of the people. Shimin Linglan felt that no matter what others thought of her, she had to try it. 7 days later, more than 100 people gathered outside a medium-sized ship. Among them, there were 5 law enforcers. Their goals were very simple: hunting, capturing contractual spiritual beasts, fishing or hunting marine creatures to improve themselves. Many people were fishing and some were talking nonsense. Someone said, "Hey, have you heard? The Avenger hijacked the Yang family's ship yesterday. 2 explorers went there and fought in the outer sea, but it was a draw. What's the background of the Avenger?" Someone sneered. "Who knows? Anyway, they are very strong. Last time, 3 explorers found their traces, but they didn't attack them and let them run away. It's just one ship. The 3 explorers failed to attack it." Someone said, "Heh. I know that some peak-level explorers have been dispatched. Although the outer sea is very large, the search ability of the strong can't be underestimated. I think a war will break out in 3 days at most." Someone nodded. "That makes sense. It's said that all the big families have sent explorers. No matter how large the sea is, it can't resist so many people." Boom. Suddenly, the ship swayed and everyone staggered. Then, they felt that the hull was slapped and the keel was deformed. Several law enforcers suddenly rose to the sky. Not good, a large sea demon. Then, nothing appeared in the void, but a terrifying power swept over everyone's heads. Boom! The ship array shook violently, and a big tail appeared in the void. Someone's expression changed drastically. "Not good, it's a ghost flood dragon. Prepare for battle, prepare for battle." An armorist law enforcer broke through the ship array, fused with the old turtle, and rushed at the ghost flood dragon. Clang, 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 the giant tail swept and knocked away the swords and knives. With a thud, the armorist was slapped thousands of meters away, vomiting blood. Someone shouted, "Why is there a ghost flood dragon here? It's at least a peak-level law enforcer. It's invincible." A law enforcer roared, "Run! Return at full speed." However, at that moment, a giant tail hundreds of meters long slapped at them. Someone shouted, "Dodge! Armorists, hold on!" However, the law enforcer hadn't returned to the ship yet. The array had just been activated, and the armorists on the ship hadn't had time to gather. Suddenly, a young man dressed in ordinary gray clothes appeared in midair. However, the young man grabbed the sea demon's tail with one hand, and with a sudden tug, he pulled out a large flood dragon from the bottom of the sea. In the blink of an eye, a cold light swept past and the ghost flood dragon was directly chopped into 5 or 6 pieces. The snake's head turned into a big shadow and was about to bite Han Fei, when a golden fist mark crushed it from head to tail. Hiss! F***CK. Who is it? Have we been saved by Mr. Explorer? No way. He's just... How could he only be a law enforcer? Suddenly, someone's expression changed. It's over, it's over. Look, isn't that? Someone swallowed frantically. The Avenger? Run, run, jump off the ship and run. As soon as the first person left the ship array, he heard a voice. Don't kill those who are not from the big families. Everyone paused, because on the other side, a woman was standing in the air and looking at them. A law enforcer's body trembled slightly. "Madam, we are not from the big families. We are independent cultivators, so we formed a group of 100 people to go out to sea to hunt." The armorist who was slapped away hurriedly said, "Madam, please don't kill us." Shiman Linglan's voice was cold. "As I said, the Avenger will not kill those who are not from the big families. The purpose of the Avenger is to fight for justice and freedom. We will slaughter the big families, and let everyone in U City become free people and share the resources of the sea." What the Vengeance wanted was a united human race without oppression. This is the principle of the Avenger. We welcome ambitious people to join the Avenger. We will wait for you at the Storm Strait. After that, Shiman Linglan and Han Fei disappeared, and the Avenger in the distance did not approach but quietly went away. Only a group of law enforcers and hidden fishers were left on the ship, dumbfounded. Did I hear it right? Don't die. Son of AB*TCH, I was scared to death. I thought I couldn't escape just now. After the panic, someone couldn't help but reflect, the Avenger doesn't seem to be what we thought. Someone frowned. Do you think it's possible? They want to overthrow the big families in U City. Someone shook his head. How is it possible? How can they overthrow the big families with the Venerables? Will the Venerables of the big families allow this to happen? Someone said, Say, what if the Avenger really succeeds? A law enforcer's eyes flickered. Whether it succeeds or not doesn't matter. Do you want to go? The others nodded like chicks pecking rice. This goal was too ambitious, and it sounded very bewitching. The enforcer glanced at them. Damn it, all of you stay here. Even if it's true, there will be millions of dead bodies on the way. Do you want to leave your homes? Suddenly, a female manipulator among the 5 law enforcers stepped out of the ship. She looked back and said, I have nothing to worry about. I'm strong. I'm going. Hidden fishers, don't come. If you fail, you'll really be gone. The manipulator rushed all the way and didn't look back while there was still a trace of the Avenger. Many people were speechless. The armorist sighed gloomily. Alas. She's gambling with her life. How dare she? Next to her, a soul warrior said, If you have nothing to worry about, will you take the risk? You've also seen those 2 people. Do you think they're people who would covet our meager resources? The ghost flood dragon killed them. They didn't even pick up their bodies. The armorist choked. You don't say. If they really succeed, the rise of ordinary people will be at least several times faster. Hey wait, isn't the Storm Strait part of the 100,000 Mountains? Chapter 1133. EU was a manipulator. Her life experience wasn't complicated. Like most people, her family died in battle. She had a few friends, but they were all looking for their own opportunities. As a mid-level enforcer, her status wasn't low. Many large clans tried to recruit her. However, she knew that once she entered a large clan, she would no longer be free. She would become a soldier. She would fight wherever she was told. She wouldn't be able to get anything good. There were many people who had the same thoughts as her. That was why independent cultivators formed 100-man teams and went out to sea to hunt. This way, life and death were fated. The things that they hunted belonged to them. Thus, when she heard about Shiman Linglan's ambition, she was instantly convinced. If the rule of the large clans in U City was overthrown, she would be able to establish a free human race. They would be able to uphold justice for billions of people. They would be able to fight for resources with their own strength. However, when she stepped onto the Avenger, she regretted her decision. She looked at the 20 muscular men. Their killing intent was intense. She was just a mid-level enforcer. How could she not be afraid? However, what EU didn't know was that the muscular men were also dumbfounded. Their captain had just shouted and someone came? Moreover, it was a pretty girl. They had been wandering the seas for decades. Other than their captain, they had forgotten what a girl looked like. They weren't nervous. They were just not used to it. After all, there was only one woman on the Avenger. Plus, she was a pair with General Han. No one dared to do anything to her. Shiman Linglan smiled. Welcome to the Avenger. Hum. Roar. Roar. The moment Shiman Linglan finished speaking, an angry roar could be heard from the cabin. I didn't die. I became an explorer. Ha! As expected, those who survive a disaster will be blessed with good fortune. General Han, General Han. Everyone was speechless. Jiao Wuxing jumped out and laughed. General Han, I can't thank you enough. What do you want to eat? I'll get it for you. Jiao Wuxing, shut up. Can't you act like an explorer? Aha, a woman. Where did this woman come from? EU was dumbfounded. Is this man an explorer? Shiman Linglan scolded Jiao Wuxing. She smiled and looked at EU. There aren't many rules on the Avenger. Everyone was very casual. The resources were taken by whoever needed them. How should I address you? EU hurriedly said, I'm EU, a mid-level enforcer and a manipulator. Spiritual beast. Shiman Linglan nodded slightly. She looked at Jiao Wuxing and the others casually. Bring EU to learn about the Avenger. Also, EU's realm is a little unstable. She needs to obtain some resources to stabilize it. All of a sudden, the group of people started arguing. Miss EU, let me show you. I'm a middle-level enforcer, just like you. We have a close relationship. Someone pushed him away. Get lost. What the hell are you talking about? Do you know what to pick? Miss EU, I'm a peak-level law enforcer. I've picked up some good stuff for you to choose from. Someone said in disdain, You're so ugly, aren't you embarrassed to lead the way? Lady EU, I'm the most normal and soft-spoken person here. I'll take you there. EU was dumbfounded. His words were like thunder. How could he be soft-spoken? She subconsciously looked at Shiman Linglan. However, when she looked again, Shiman Linglan had already disappeared. When she looked up, she saw Shiman Linglan standing on the mast. In midair, the young man who just tore apart the ghost dragon was carving strange lines on the sail. EU was only a little curious. A group of burly men surrounded her and took her to see the ghost ship. Someone saw EU's gaze and immediately reminded her, Miss EU, you can do whatever you want on the Avenger. But not General Dudahan. He's the captain's. EU was surprised. General Han? Someone immediately said in a boastful manner, You don't know about this. Speaking of General Han, there's a lot to talk about. I'm not bragging, but in this world, there's no one in the same realm as General Han. Back then, listening to those stories that weren't bragging, Shiman Linglan grinned. I'm talking about you. In the eyes of these idiots, you're the captain. Han Fei turned his head and glanced at Shiman Linglan, chuckled, and scratched his head. Idiot. When EU saw the resources on the Avenger, she was dumbfounded. She had never seen so many resources in her life. She picked up a sun-moon shell, and it was filled to the brim. There were countless sea-swallowing seashells. All kinds of weapons were thrown everywhere. And looking at the quality, wasn't that a divine weapon? Also, that sea-swallowing seashell. What's that green thing? Spirit-awakening fluid? Also, that horrified creature, wasn't that a Tao-seeking realm great demon? Why wasn't it refined into a divine weapon? Someone hurriedly said, "Ah, I took the wrong one. These are all ingredients. Keep them. Let's look at something else." EU's eyes widened. Ingredients? Jiao Wuxing laughed. Exactly. General Han likes to eat them. The captain listened to General Han and has been preparing them. EU couldn't help but stick out her tongue. They are just intermediate law enforcers. Why are they so strong? But in any case, EU felt that she had made a profit. Although these people looked ferocious, they seemed to be nice people. 5 days later, in the city of U, in the streets and alleys, and even in the villages and towns. Hey, have you heard? The Avenger is here to rescue the people at the bottom of our city of U. They said that they want to recruit people in the Storm Strait and overthrow the big clans in city of U. When did that happen? Isn't that a bunch of murderers? They specialize in plundering? You know football? My distant cousin has seen the Avenger with his own eyes. How can it be fake? Are you serious? Hey, no, isn't the Storm Strait the territory of the 100,000 mountains? Who knows, on a certain boat. Someone said, "Hey, brothers, why don't we go to the Storm Strait and join the Avenger? Otherwise, with our ability to find fortuitous opportunities, when will we be able to make a name for ourselves?" Someone sneered. Do you think you can go to the Storm Strait whenever you want? We were swallowed by the violent whirlpool there before we reached it. Someone sighed. This Avenger is really something. Why did they choose the Storm Strait? Someone replied, nonsense. How dare the experts of the big clans go to the 100,000 mountains? It's said that there are powerful creatures there. In the city of U. Someone said, brother, we are all rogue cultivators. Why don't we go to the Storm Strait and try our luck? Someone hurriedly became nervous and shouted in a low voice, Are you crazy? Don't you know that a group of people has been arrested? I heard that the big clans have already sent people to stop them on the way. Really? Forget it. Let's wait and see. On the other side, a large ship was moving forward at full speed in the waves. Someone at the bow of the ship shouted coldly, Humph, a few clowns want to destroy our big clans? Someone chuckled next to him. There is news that the Avenger is on the way to the Storm Strait. Someone has already gone to stop them. We are not slow. We are not much slower than them. Someone snorted. If not for the fact that the Venerables have not recovered from their injuries, how could they allow a few explorers to show off on the sea? A lady from the big clans chuckled. They are just clowns. We will definitely destroy the Avenger on this trip. I heard that there are many peak enforcers on the ship. We can practice with them. Shimen Lai, don't you think so? A cold young man narrowed his eyes and said, My target is Shimen Linglan. The lady chuckled. Are you so sure that it's her? Shimen Lai nodded. I can't be wrong. This is similar to 18 years ago. She might have gotten a fortuitous encounter too. In the past, we spared her life because we thought that she would not be able to make a name for herself. But now, humph, she must die. The news had spread like wildfire in the city of U. The Avenger's bold words about overthrowing the big clans were spread. For a moment, countless people yearned for it. However, very few of them took action. Everyone was just watching. There would definitely be a huge battle at the Storm Strait. If they survived, the reputation of the Avenger would definitely soar. But if they failed, all this would just be a beautiful bubble. At this moment, the Avenger was rushing on the sea with the 3 big ships. The Avenger, with its arrays fully activated, was extremely fast. and Han Fei also ran to the other 3 big ships to draw pictures. The main reason was that there was no place to draw on the Avenger, and Han Fei felt that he couldn't suppress his realm anymore. He had to find something to do to make himself forget about the breakthrough. Bam! An array collapsed, setting off a shock. Shimin Linglan said, "This is the 3rd time today that your array has been broken. It seems that you want to go back too." Han Fei looked up and smiled. "Yes." Shimin Linglan smiled and said, "We're almost there. In about half a day we will enter the Storm Domain and the Whirlpool Domain. I think there should be many seniors from the 100,000 mountains there. Now let's go eat first." Han Fei had just grinned when he suddenly thought of something and his expression changed slightly. He roared at the void and punched out. Bam! A crack was torn in the void, and a big hand reached out and crushed the golden fist mark. Immediately afterward, a middle-aged man in a purple robe walked out of the void and glanced at Han Fei and Shimin Linglan. "Well, you're not weak. However, you're just a peak-level law enforcer. Are you people from the Avengers?" Shimin Linglan shouted in a low voice. "Idiot, go back to the Avenger." "Humph, you want to go back?" The middle-aged man held the void cage in his hand and blocked it with his shield. Then the void twisted and Han Fei and Shimin Linglan had disappeared in their own trap array. Is this the law of space? The 100,000 mountains and the city of you had never been on good terms. Therefore, the Sky Clan's miraculous techniques would never be revealed to the humans. If the Venerable were here, he would definitely know about it. However, because the explorer had never fought with the strongest masters of the Sky Clan, he didn't know about the Heavenly Void Divine Walking Technique and the Big Dipper Technique. Shimin Linglan yelled, "Open the array!" According to Shimin Linglan's plan, the Avenger, which was infinitely enhanced by Han Fei's array, was actually very fast. This was also the reason why they were able to avoid the explorers for the past few days. According to her calculations, those people shouldn't be able to send messages so quickly. But now it was clearly beyond her expectations. Hum, hum, hum. In an instant, the Avenger turned into a super turtle shell surrounded by dense light mist. Spiritual energy surged in all directions, and the Avenger's speed suddenly soared. The explorer who showed up was also a little confused. How many arrays did they set up on this ship? The explorer sneered. "Since you've been caught by me, do you think it's possible for you to escape?" The void was torn again, and the explorer appeared in front of the Avenger. He pushed a huge hand in the void. He didn't believe that he couldn't even stop a ship with his full strength. Rumble! A terrifying force swept across the sea, and the waves spread for dozens of miles. However, the explorer's eyes narrowed. Nothing happened? This ship didn't even retreat? At this moment, everyone on the Avenger gathered on the deck. The big ships behind them were all abandoned. They could snatch more ships, but the war was about to start. They had to fight. Jiao Wuxing shouted, "Damn it, who's here?" Shimin Linglan said solemnly, "Peak-level explorer." As a newcomer, Yu's heart trembled as she watched this scene. Could a peak-level explorer resist them? Apart from the captain and General Han, what else could the Avenger rely on? However, before they could think too much about it, they saw 3 explorers tear through the void and arrive. Shimin Linglan's face changed slightly. "We can't wait. This is only the first batch. If we delay, there will be a second batch later." Jiao Wuxing said hesitantly, "Captain, I don't think we can beat them." Someone gritted his teeth and said, "Zhou Zifu of the Zhou family." Someone said coldly, "Zhao Pai of the Zhao family." Shimin Linglan shouted in a low voice, "Now is not the time to be angry. Venerable Bone Spiritual Qi Cannon, get ready." The so-called Venerable Spiritual Qi Cannon was forged with the bones of Venerable Level C demons. Since he had learned the 100 Battles Divine Hammer, its practical value was much higher than ordinary refining methods. As for why he chose the Spiritual Qi Cannon? He learned it from the giant serpent in the sea when he fought it. He was tempted at that time, so he forged 2 weapons of this level with venerable level bones. Crack, crack, crack. 2 round holes appeared on the deck of the Avenger, and 2 cannons appeared. At this moment, the 4 explorers had communicated with each other and attacked at the same time. Some could carry giant shields, some held axes, and some held silver spears. Of course, none of them were peak-level explorers. However, there were also 2 advanced explorers and 1 intermediate explorer. The peak-level explorer shouted in a low voice, "Break the arrays!" Oh! A mountain-carrying conch appeared, which was as huge as a mountain. Rumble! Clang! Gotcha! This time, more than 10 arrays were shattered. A small hole appeared on the sail at the front. The Avenger's speed dropped by half, and the hull shook violently. Swish! Han Fei and Shiman Linglong appeared in front of the Venerable Bone's spiritual chi cannon at the same time, raised the cannon, and aimed at the void. The peak-level explorer shouted, "Be careful. We don't know what that thing is." Bam! Bam! 2 cannons were fired in an instant. The entire Avenger suddenly froze. The terrifying ball of spiritual energy appeared in front of 2 of the explorers, as if it had broken through the void. Rumble! The sea was sunken, and huge waves rose to the sky. Half of the sky was illuminated by white light, causing everyone's eyes to see a vast expanse of whiteness. Dodge that thing! The 4 explorers retreated one after another. When they stabilized themselves, they looked horrified. Among them, the intermediate explorer's armor was all broken, he was dripping with blood, his chest and abdomen were sunken, and his 2 arms were gone. As for Zhou Zifu, half of the mountain-carrying conch's body was blown into pieces. He was so scared that he hurriedly put away his spiritual beast. Damn it, I almost died. When the white light flashed again, a boom sound was heard as another cannon shot was fired. This was shot out by Han Fei. He was aiming at the explorer whose arms were broken. However, this time, the peak-level explorer slashed the void with his saber. Dragon slaying slash! Rumble! Once again, white light exploded and waves surged to the sky. Shiman Linglong fired another cannon. Although each cannon consumed a huge amount of spiritual energy, they had a lot of reserves, so they didn't panic. They could fire hundreds of more cannons. On the deck, everyone laughed loudly. Ah! Are you an explorer? F***CK, come at me again. Son of AB** Tsich Zhou, do you still remember me? You definitely don't remember me, but I remember you. My sister died tragically in the hands of Zhou Fei, your son of AB** Tch. I'll get even with you sooner or later. After a few cannons, the explorers all stepped in the void at an astonishing speed. The peak-level explorer said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "That thing needs to be aimed accurately. As long as you don't control it, you'll be fine." Zhou Zifu didn't seem to hear the shouting on the ship. "I'll attack from the bottom of the ship." The moment they split up, they suddenly saw Han Fei and Shiman Linglong disappear. The void twisted, and the 2 of them appeared directly in front of the intermediate explorer who had lost his arms. The latter shouted coldly, "Knife waterfall!" Oh! In an instant, hundreds of beasts floated in the void, roaring and rushing. A knife light appeared in Han Fei's hand, and he slashed out with his strongest combat power. Of course, it was a pity that the knife light was instantly shattered by the waterfall-like knife light. However, when that person attacked, the gravity sank, and there seemed to be 100 dangers in the void. The law of gravity. Break. Even though the explorer was seriously injured, he was still an explorer and couldn't be killed easily. However, the opponent in front of this person was Han Fei. Behind him, the black fog in the void attacked, and 2 soul-sucking machetes hit his body. Puff, puff. The 2 knives hit him. Just when Shiman Linglong was about to attack again, Han Fei appeared, pulled her away, and twisted the space. That was because the dragon's shadow had pounced over. The peak explorer had arrived. Oh! Bam! Han Fei roared, trying to stop this person. However, the opponent's realm was too much higher. When the void twisted, he almost touched the two of them. However, the venerable bone's spiritual qi cannon exploded again, and Jiao Wuxing was watching them. With another explosion, Han Fei and Shimen Linglan returned to the Avenger. All of this happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint. It wasn't that the other people on the ship didn't want to help, but that they didn't have time to react at all. Only Jiao Wuxing, who had suddenly become an explorer, could help in time. Back on the ship, Shimen Linglan quickly looked at Han Fei, only to find that there was blood at the corner of Han Fei's mouth. "Idiot, are you okay?" Han Fei shook his head and cast the divine healing technique on himself. Jiao Wuxing shouted, "General Han, it's too risky. After all, the other party has a peak-level explorer." EU, who had witnessed the whole battle, was dumbfounded. An intermediate law enforcer was going to kill an intermediate explorer? And he even escaped from a peak-level explorer? This completely changed her impression of intermediate law enforcers. At this moment, EU finally knew why these ferocious guys admired Han Fei so much. How could she not admire him? This spirit, this courage, and this strength, he had already begun to worship. At this moment, the Avenger was flying fast. After a round of battle, neither side had the upper hand. The only thing that was not good news was that the intermediate explorer was vomiting blood. Although he wasn't killed by the two heavy blows, he was no longer able to fight. However, this person was not important to him. What was important was the peak-level explorer. The venerable bone's spiritual qi cannon only left a few drops of blood on his fist. "Do you think you can run away with a ship?" The peak-level explorer didn't attack again, but said to Zhao Pai and the seriously injured explorer, "You go back and guide them." Zhao Pai nodded slightly, tore open the void, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The peak-level law enforcer looked at Shimen Linglan and Han Fei. "It's at least 10 hours from here to the Storm Canyon. And the strong masters of U City will only need 4 hours to get there. You can try to delay it. I'm curious, who drew this array on the ship? It's indeed exquisite." Seeing that someone was looking at Han Fei, the peak-level explorer's eyes narrowed slightly. "Oh, that's surprising. An intermediate law enforcer has the power of an explorer, the law of space, and can draw such a complicated array. He's a top heavenly talent, but unfortunately, he chose the wrong path." Shimen Linglan said coldly, "Our path is to wipe out the big clans that have occupied U City for thousands of years. If we survive this, the big clans of U City will never have peace." "Huh. You're talking big." Chapter 1134. The vengeance shook from the impact, but the array did not break. Suddenly, Zhou Zifu appeared in midair. He shook his head slightly and said, "The bottom of the ship is also engraved with strange formations. These formations were all interconnected, and it was definitely not the work of a single day. However, these formations themselves are not very strong, but when they are strung together, they are very complicated." After saying this, Zhou Zifu looked at Shimen Linglan and the others. "If I'm not wrong, at most 3 peak-stage explorers will work together to destroy this ship formation." Someone scolded, "Then we'll talk about it after it's broken. You two don't have the ability, so stop yelling." Someone laughed and scolded, "I never thought that one day I would have the opportunity to confront a peak explorer. I've set an example for countless people." Jiao Wuxing grinned and said, "Captain, Commander Han, if they really break the formation, the two of you must escape. It's not a pity for us to die. As long as the two of you escape, I, old Jia, believe that sooner or later, these fish-shit clans will be exterminated." "Yes, not bad. Marshal Han, remember to bring the boats and run." "That's right, General Han. When the time comes, remember to leave first. We'll bring up the rear." "Haha, I should have died more than 10 years ago anyway. I've lived for more than 10 years, and I've earned it." Shimen Linglan turned around and shouted, "It's not time to run yet. I want to see what these people are capable of." After saying that, Shimin Linglong said proudly, "Don't you all want to know why we are going to Storm Strait?" The peak-level explorer narrowed his eyes. "Oh, tell me about it." Shimin Linglong glanced at Han Fei and smiled. "Because we are from the 100,000 Mountains." "Bullshit." Zhou Zifu sneered. "The human race and the 100,000 mountain range have had nothing to do with each other for 1,000 years. Can you enter the grand myriad mountains with just your strength?" Shimin Linglong sneered. "Do you want to bet?" The peak-level explorer thought for a while and said, "Even if you come from the 100,000 mountains, what can you do?" The human race and the 100,000 mountains had always minded their own business. "Do you think they'll go against the humans for the few of you?" Shimin Linglong frowned slightly. She wasn't sure about this. However, with Han Fei here, Shimin Linglong felt that it was very possible. However, he didn't know much about this matter. He didn't know why the four venerables valued Han Fei so much. Therefore, even if he told the two of them, it would be useless. Suddenly, Han Fei scratched his head. "I think I've made a breakthrough." Shimin Linglong shuddered. She was not the only one. Everyone on the Avenger trembled slightly. Han Fei was about to make a breakthrough, which they had never seen before. Yes, in the past 18 years, Han Fei only made 2 breakthroughs in 2 extremely dangerous situations. He didn't even make a breakthrough in the minor realm. However, at this moment, Han Fei said that he was going to make a breakthrough. This meant that if Han Fei became a senior law enforcer, his strength would soar. Zhou Zifu burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha! What a joke! How could a mid-level enforcer break through be heaven-defying? So what if you have extraordinary talent and have broken through?" However, on the Avenger, more than 20 people looked at Zhou Zifu as if they were looking at an idiot. They thought to themselves, "You don't understand at all." Shimin Linglong looked at Han Fei with a complicated expression. She did not know what Han Fei's breakthrough meant. However, the Beast King once said that there must be a reason for Han Fei to suppress his realm. Shimin Linglong took a deep breath. "Okay." With a swish, Han Fei disappeared on the spot and had already entered the cabin. Jia Wuxing and the others had completely forgotten that there were 2 explorers outside the ship and were all guessing. Jia Wuxing said, "I can't imagine it. I thought that General Han would only make a breakthrough when he couldn't suppress his realm anymore." Someone rolled his eyes. He couldn't suppress his realm anymore. General Han's body has begun to dissipate energy. Someone agreed, if it wasn't for Marshal Han's frighteningly strong physique, an ordinary person would have collapsed 10 years ago. Yu's body was tense. She felt that this would be very difficult. Although she had heard a lot of stories about Han Fei in the past few days. However, no matter how strong a person was, he couldn't cross a whole realm to challenge peak-level explorers, right? Even if he could challenge them, he couldn't fight them all, could he? Someone looked at Yu with a smile and said, "Yu, don't be nervous. Even if General Han can't defeat them, he can at least run away with the captain. This is very meaningful." Someone nodded. "Thank you. You've only boarded the Avenger for a few days, and you have to face such a situation. But don't panic. Maybe we can rush into the Storm Strait." Outside the resource warehouse in the cabin, Han Fei sat cross-legged. These years, he really couldn't suppress his energy anymore. Since 5 years ago, he had been practicing the indestructible body to suppress the outburst of energy in his body. This was the main reason why he could tear alien beasts apart with his bare hands. Because now, he had broken through the 3rd level of the indestructible body. Not only had he broken through the 3rd level of the indestructible body, but he was also about to reach the 4th level. But at this moment, he also realized the crisis. If there were a few more people with such strength outside the ship, he and Shimin Linglong would probably lose. He held a sun-moon shell in his hand, and with a buzz, a skyrocketing spiritual energy erupted on the Avenger. Because it was blocked by an extremely complicated array, even the peak-level explorers outside were blocked by layers of restrictions. However, the spiritual energy outside was swarming in, and the people on the other side were all shocked. It's just a breakthrough. Why is there such a big movement? Not only spiritual energy, but also terrifying energy burst out in the cabin. Half an hour later. Gotcha! A crisp sound came from the cabin. For a moment, everyone looked at the entrance of the cabin. However, the spiritual chi and energy didn't stop. They were still surging like bees. It seemed that the entire Avenger was covered by spiritual energy. 1 hour later. Someone said in surprise, "Is General Han still making a breakthrough?" Jia Wuxing said, "Don't disturb him. We never understand General Han's way of doing things." Crack! Another sound of a barrier breaking. Everyone knew that Han Fei was indeed continuing to make a breakthrough. And very fast. In just half an hour, not only did he stabilize his realm, but he also broke through a small level. Almost another hour later, the people outside were still waiting for reinforcements. After all, the array couldn't be broken for a while. However, there was another click in the cabin. Outside the ship, Zhou Zifu frowned. Is there such a precedent? This person actually broke through 2 levels in a row after breaking through? Is he going to break through all the way to a peak-level law enforcer? The peak-level explorer frowned slightly. Ignore him. As long as he doesn't become an explorer, no matter how he makes a breakthrough, it won't affect the overall situation. Today, the Avenger will be completely destroyed. At this time, maybe because they were close to the so-called storm strait, the waves began to get stronger and the wind was howling. Suddenly, the void was torn apart. With a swoosh, Shimen Linglan flashed to the venerable bone spirit chi cannon, raised her hand, and fired. However, the incoming sword shadow only paused for a moment, and a crack appeared on his palm, but then it returned to normal. Interesting, Brother Feng. It seems that we are not too late. The peak-level explorer nodded slightly. Brother Dongfang, are you alone? The void was torn again, and 2 more people stepped out. Shimen Linglan's eyes narrowed. Brother Shimen, we were waiting for you. Shimen Linglan gritted her teeth, and her eyes were spitting fire. Shimen Wuqing, Shimen Zhan, Shimen Linglan would never forget this person. Shimen Wuqing was precisely this person, her nominal second ancestor, who had cut off her path to become a proud son of heaven. Beside Shimen Wuqing was her third grandfather, Shimen Zhan. This person loved to fight, but he still wanted to pretend to be scholarly and virtuous. However, he was ruthless and not a good person. Shimen Zhan's eyes narrowed. It seems that it really is you. Shimen Linglan, you actually became an explorer? It seems that you are blessed by Providence. Shimen Wuqing's eyes turned cold. Bastard. Shimen Linglan shouted angrily, Go to hell, you old bastard. You stole my spirit meridians and harmed my mother. I will never forgive you for this. Shimen Wuqing smiled lightly. Your mother? Didn't you kill her yourself? Jia Wuxing and the others knew that Shimen Linglan's real enemy was here. They instantly shouted, Old bastard, stop bullsh *ting. Someone shouted angrily, Old bastard, the Shimen family is immoral. They will be destroyed sooner or later. Shimen Wuqing was a peak-level explorer after all. How could he allow others to humiliate him? Immediately, he struck the Avenger with a single palm. Boom! However, the complex array floated in the air. Shimen Wuqing was surprised that his attack had been blocked. Shimen Wuqing couldn't help but look at the peak stage explorer. Sun Qian, what about this array? Sun Qian smiled faintly. If it could be broken, I wouldn't have asked you guys to come. Shimen Wuqing snorted. Let's attack together. Shimen Linglan said, Jia Wuxing, you take care of the other bone's spirit chi cannon. However, there are 6 explorers here. 3 are peak stage explorers and 3 are advanced explorers. 2 cannons are clearly not enough. The others were useless in this battle. If they were enforcers, they would have already killed their way out. However, at this moment, they could only curse from the ship. They could say anything they wanted anyway. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. A real naval battle was about to unfold. Even though neither side could temporarily injure or defeat the other party, at the very least, it would cause a great commotion, shaking the heavens and earth like the rumbling of thunder. Crack, crack, crack. The array of the Avenger was being broken. 3 peak-level explorers and 3 advanced explorers attacked. Even though Han Fei's array was already very complicated, it still couldn't withstand such a violent bombardment. In only half an hour, half of the misty array on the Avenger was broken. Shimin Wuching shouted, "Only the last layer is left. This layer is the most complicated. It should have carved the whole ship into a hole. Let's break it together." First, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1135. Crack. The energy and spiritual energy on the surface of Han Fei's body slowly converged. As he slowly opened his eyes, countless images began to be organized in his mind. In an instant, 80% of his divine soul was assembled. Who? Han Fei let out a long breath, scanned with his perception, and sighed in his heart. Alas! It seems that when I reach the peak, I will fully recover. Oh, Bottle Gourd, why didn't you block that attack back then? Now it's hard for me to deal with it. Han Fei smiled self-deprecatingly. That's bullsh *T city of you, the city of justice, the prehistoric soul realm. It seems that history is really complicated. I just didn't expect that I would be in this history. Han Fei sobered up. He felt that there was something wrong with this history. He had inexplicably run into it. In a sense, was he interfering with history? No. Han Fei realized. Perhaps this was a part of history. However, if he was a part of history, was he really Han Fei? In other words, was the Earth real? Han Fei shook his head slightly, got rid of the distracting thoughts, and suddenly stood up. He curled the corner of his mouth. How could he fight this battle? The Avenger was the product of Fool Wang Han's 18 years of hard work. But now it had been destroyed. The last layer of the array could only last for half an hour at most. However, although he was stupid when he was Wang Han, he still had his goals. Now, his understanding of arrays had reached an extremely high level. Han Fei couldn't help but click his tongue. If he kept studying arrays in this state, sooner or later, he would be able to trap and kill explorers. Outside, the battle was fierce. All of a sudden, EU and the others saw a figure appear beside them out of nowhere. F***CK. Marshal Han? Marshal Han, when did you come out? Shimin Linglan trembled all over. For some reason, she felt that Han Fei was different now. Jia Wuxing shouted, "Marshal Han, why don't you do it? You should be more experienced than me." Han Fei didn't look back and said casually, "No, you can continue." Everyone's body suddenly trembled. Since when did Marshal Han become so straightforward with his words? Outside, Shimin Wuching sneered and shouted, "Who am I talking about? He's just a high-ranking enforcer." Han Fei smiled and stomped on the ground. With a series of bangs, a series of arrays rose at the same time, stunning everyone. EU and the others were also stunned. Is this an array? I can't even kill people as fast as you, okay? However, the coiled turtle formation was like paper in front of these peak-level explorers. There was no way to block their attacks. Shimin Linglan shouted, "Idiot." Han Fei turned around and smiled at Shimin Linglan. "I heard you." Shimin Linglan's expression changed. Her eyes were filled with fear. You remember?" Han Fei heaved a sigh. "Almost. However, it did not matter. Keep watch, I'll be back soon." "Ah?" Jia Wuxing and the others were surprised. "What do you mean? Where are you going?" Shimin Zhan sneered. "A mere high-level law enforcement officer, where do you want to go?" Han Fei glanced at Shimin Zhan disdainfully. "Where I go is none of your business." Buzz! In an instant, Han Fei had disappeared 1,000 meters away from the Avenger. He activated the devil change, the phantom glass wings, the agility of wind, and the heavenly oasis divine walking technique. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei disappeared from everyone's sight. Jean, stop him. He's going to look for help. Although Sun Qian was surprised by Han Fei's speed, she still reminded him rationally. Han Fei was going to the storm strait. It was obvious that he was going to look for help. Shimin Zhan quickly tore the void apart and chased after Han Fei. To be honest, Han Fei didn't even know how fast he was. The agility of wind's maximum speed had reached a terrifying figure 6 times. The heavenly oasis divine walking technique was extremely fast. Even with the devil change, he could only reach the speed of an intermediate explorer. Besides, he had the phantom glass wings. The two of them seemed to have stepped into the void together. First, 800 kilometers away, Han Fei felt the space fluctuate, and his body twisted and moved 1,000 meters horizontally. When Shimin Zhan came out, he was speechless to find that Han Fei was already dozens of kilometers away. Shimin Zhan was dumbfounded. Are you King kidding me? The speed of an advanced law enforcer is comparable to that of an advanced explorer? The problem was that he needed time to tear the void apart. And this time was enough for Han Fei to fly dozens of kilometers away. Shimin Zhan snorted. Let's see how far you can run. This time, Shimin Lai tried to cross thousands of kilometers and block in front of Han Fei. In fact, he did block in front of Han Fei. However, he appeared and Han Fei disappeared. When he scanned with his perception, he found that Han Fei was rushing somewhere 300 kilometers away from him. How is it possible? Han Fei sneered. So what if you're an explorer? Do you think you can block me without my divination skills? In less than half an hour, Han Fei saw the storm strait. The so-called storm strait must have experienced a great battle here. The heaven-reaching sword mark set off waves of sword chi. Therefore, there was a very strong sword intent here. Besides, there used to be a broken array here. On the sea, there were vortexes one after another. An excellent place for cultivation. Han Fei immediately figured it out. When he saw the seaweed and demon plants here, he knew he had arrived at the right place. Oh! The 100 beasts' soul-suppressing roar burst out. For a moment, Han Fei felt that someone's perception swept over. Han Fei looked back and hurriedly said, "It's me, I'm Wang Han. The Giant King, the Beast King, the Tianqing Venerable, and the Water Fairy are all my teachers. There's a high-level explorer chasing after me, and I need everyone's help." After saying this, Han Fei deliberately slowed down. Sure enough, it only took a minute for Shimin Zhan to arrive. When Shimin Zhan appeared, he found that Han Fei was a kilometer away, looking at him with a smile. Shimin Zhan's pupils constricted and he looked around. "It's just some demon plants. Do you think they can save you?" "Ho!" Han Fei's body suddenly transformed into a big ape nearly 50 meters tall. As Han Fei stretched out his hand, a big stick appeared in his hand. The ape's low and domineering roar sounded like a demon's voice. "Advanced explorers, I don't think I can beat them. But let's try." Hum! A giant pillar rose 100 meters into the sky, burning with fire, and suddenly smashed down. Shimin Zhan's face was extremely dark. Is this guy really related to the 100,000 mountains? He was a warlike person and had read some records about the beast. At this moment, Shimin Zhan said coldly, "Beast? King? Spell?" Shimin Zhan roared, "This place is still far from the 100,000 mountains. We've just entered the storm strait. Who will know if I kill you first?" Swish, swish, swish. Then, he saw many seeds coming out of nowhere. A giant seaweed on the seabed, its big leaves coming out of the water. Bam! 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 The seeds bloomed one after another, blooming purple demonic flowers. The broad leaves formed an array, blocking the air. Moo! Suddenly, Shimin Zhan heard an old bull moo. Chirp! The void was torn apart, and a huge sky survey golden eagle appeared, like a big eagle pouncing on its prey. Why are there so many strong masters? At this moment, Shimin Zhan couldn't run away. The void was smashed by Han Fei's rod, shaking and rolling. At this moment, even if he could tear it apart, he might fall into the void turbulence. Bam! Shimin Zhan smashed the sky with his hammer. After all, he was an advanced explorer. No matter how much Han Fei had improved, it was impossible for him to suppress him in strength. Han Fei's rod was knocked back, but a giant claw scratched 6 red marks in the air, spanning 100 meters. Shimin Zhan wanted to dodge, but the surroundings had been blocked by demonic plants. Mystifying dragon horn. A giant dragon emerged, and the surrounding wind formed a shield, blocking in front of it. You want to play with the wind? Wind sky spell. The sky survey golden eagle flapped its wings, and the wind moved horizontally, turning into a big bird of wind. Tens of thousands of feathers turned into blades, covering the ground. Clang, clang, clang. Swish, swish, swish. Shimin Zhan's blood was burning. He activated a strange technique, and his flesh and blood soared. However, at this moment, a huge mountain seemed to press down. An old bull, whose hooves were as heavy as mountains, directly crushed the space around Shimin Zhan. Han Fei, who had transformed into a giant ape, suddenly held a big knife in his hand and shouted, "Draw technique!" The sky-piercing knife light slashed straight at Shimin Zhan, who was completely restrained. Shimin Zhan roared, "The 100,000 mountains! Do you want to go to war with the human race?" Han Fei shouted, "Then let's fight!" Puff! Han Fei's attack couldn't kill Shimin Zhan after all. After all, the gap between their realms was too big. Even if he used the Beast King art and improved his strength again and again, it was still not enough. However, although he didn't kill Shimin Zhan, he still tore a large piece of Shimin Zhan's flesh. However, the Sky Survey Golden Eagle was different. It directly tore off Shimin Zhan's 2 arms. At the same time, Shimin Zhan's wounds turned purple, and the poison entered his body. Bam! Bam! Its big hooves smashed Shimin Zhan's lower body. A large number of demonic plants fluttered and began to devour Shimin Zhan's flesh. No. Why? Explode. However, before Shimin Zhan finished shouting, a giant crocodile stuck its head out of the void crack and stared at him. Shimin Zhan was petrified. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1136. Welcome to the new Alliance Leader, Shuwa 20170403144602892. Let me mention, I've been breaking out recently, so I won't add any updates. I'll continue to break out tomorrow. I have something to do today, so I'll update normally. Han Fei looked at Old Cow and the Sky Survey Golden Eagle apologetically. However, she didn't have time to argue. Seniors, Ling Lan is still being surrounded. Seniors, please lend me a hand. The Sky Surveying Golden Condor said in a cold voice, Wang Han, you are humans to begin with. Why would you fight with the humans to this extent? The old bull said in a low voice, are you really going to start a war with the human race in the 100,000 mountains? The danger of the sea race had yet to be resolved. The battle between venerable ones is not meant to cause internal strife among the living beings on the continent. Han Fei said solemnly, Seniors, please trust me. Currently, the human race was being bullied by the great races. Without destruction, there would be no construction. They had to take this opportunity to clean up the hidden dangers. In the future, the human race would become a free race. Without the strong monopolizing the resources, more people would rise. When billions of humans rose, there would definitely be geniuses who could push the combat power of the human race to another peak. That way they can be better than the sea race. A demon plant shook and said in an ethereal voice, You mean to say that you want the 100,000 mountains to help you rule the human race? Han Fei shook his head. Everyone is equal. There was no distinction between nobility and inferiority. Different experts only had different tasks. Everyone had the opportunity to rise. At that time, the human race will only have one voice, and that is to fight against the invasion of the sea race. The old bull said, I need to inform the Beast King. Anxiety flashed in Han Fei's eyes. It's too late. If we're any slower, Shimin Linglan will be killed. The sky-surveying golden eagle was silent for a few breaths. I'll help you stabilize the situation first. My king, the giant king, and the fairy are still recovering. Whether to fight or not, the Beast King will decide. In the end, the sky-survey golden eagle glanced at Han Fei. Your spiritual sense has recovered? Han Fei scratched his head. I've recovered. The sky-survey golden condor tilted its head. You're still as stupid as before. The Avenger could not move, mainly because the enemy was too strong. There was no point in leaving Shimenjan. If 3 high-level explorers continued to bombard the ship, the Avenger's fleet would be able to last for at least 4 hours. However, the difference between peak and advanced was too great. This realm was the realm that ordinary experts could best widen the gap between them. At this moment, the azure tortoiseshell formation was already full of cracks. Shimin Linglan and Jia Wuxing didn't stop attacking. They could only hold on for a while. Otherwise, if they continued to attack, the time it would take for the ships to shatter would be greatly shortened. Jia Wuxing, no, Captain, I can't hold on any longer. If General Han doesn't make it back in time, Captain, you go first. I'll bring up the rear. The rest of them already had their weapons in their hand. What's wrong with being a law enforcement officer? Losing without a fight was a great humiliation. They were just waiting for the moment the ship formation broke, and then they would self-destruct to stop the enemy. Someone shouted, Captain, old you, have nothing to say. If you can't beat them, you must run. Remember to avenge me and kill your way through you city. Someone grinned and said, Captain, old you is right. It doesn't matter if we die, but you and Marshal Han can't die. The two of you are truly prodigies. We can't do it. We have ambitions, but our foundations are weak. Someone said with a smile, Captain, there's something I've always wanted to say. If we are going to die today, I have to say it. Captain, you're so handsome. I'm so envious of General Han. Ha ha ha. F***ck, old Jean, you said what we're thinking. Shimin Linglan shouted angrily, shut up. He will come back. No one in this world can kill him. Shimin Wuxing sneered. You're counting on that brat? Shimin Linglan, no matter how fast he is, do you think he can be faster than your third grandpa? Shimin Linglan's expression turned cold. Shut up, old man. If I don't die, the Shimin family will be destroyed. 6 hours had passed since the start of the battle. The Avenger was riddled with holes and was on the verge of collapsing. Right at that moment, more than 10 ships came from afar. Suddenly, Shimin Wuxing sneered. Shimin Linglan, the alliance of the large clans is here. Don't you want to see how your spirit meridians are used on Lai? Shimin Linglan's eyes turned cold. Shimin Lai was the name she hated in her life. However, Shimin Linglan sneered. It's only been 28 years. Did he become an explorer? Shimin Wuxing laughed as he attacked. You're underestimating a level 8 spirit meridian. Isn't it inevitable for him to become an explorer? However, Lai Er's power isn't something your broken spirit meridian can compare to. Whether it's his foundation or talent, he's better than you. Jia Wuxing scolded. Old man, our captain is invincible. He can definitely defeat that Shimin Lai one-on-one. Shimin Wuxing snorted coldly. Come and help. Don't get targeted by that cannon. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, 6 explorers tore through space. Of course, they weren't that strong. The strongest one was only an intermediate explorer. The rest were beginner explorers. Shimin Linglan's gaze landed on a red-haired young man. Shimin Linglan gritted her teeth. Lai. Shimin Lai was walking in the air. He was dodging the venerable bone spiritual chi cannon. He said slowly, Shimin Linglan, it's you. Shimin Linglong said, "It's good that you know it's me. If I don't die this time, I'll definitely kill you." Shimin Lai smiled lightly. The corner of his mouth cracked open. "Shimin Linglong, take a look at your current situation first. Also, are you sure you can kill me? Oh, actually, I knew that you left the great desolate village with an idiot. Ha ha, a fool. No matter how despicable your identity is, you shouldn't give yourself to a fool, right? You're ruining the Shimin family's reputation." Gotcha. Suddenly, the ship formation shattered. Jia Wuxing shouted, "Captain, run!" Jia Wuxing decisively gave up on the ancient spirit chi cannon. He wanted to fly into the air to stop the enemy. Although he didn't know how to stop them, he just had to run to the 3 peak explorers and self-destruct. He was an explorer after all. He should be able to do something, right? Jia Wuxing wasn't the only one who prepared to fly into the air. Everyone on the Avenger prepared to fly into the air too. But in that instant, a terrifying gravitational force came crashing down, pressing them all down. Jia Wuxing was about to yell to remind Shimin Linglong to run. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in his ear. "I told you I'll be back soon. What are you doing? Are you going to self-destruct? Do you want to die?" Han Fei turned his hand and the law of gravity disappeared. Everyone recovered. Spreading the phantom glass wings, Han Fei stood proudly in the air and looked at Shimin Lai. "Sorry, I'm the fool you mentioned. Today, I don't care about other people. You must die." Shimin Lai grinned. "Ha, you? Well, senior law enforcer? Ha ha. Are you kidding me?" Shimin Wuxing and the other 2 suddenly shouted, "Retreat!" Moo, a voice reverberated through the void, containing an explosive power within it. An old bull walked out of the crack in the void. When he first walked out, his body was only dozens of meters long. However, with every step, his body doubled in size. When he stepped out of the void crack, his huge body of more than 300 meters appeared on the water surface. Chirp, 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 the void crack opened again, and a sky survey golden eagle, a white-headed sea eagle, and a white-eyed wild eagle appeared. Except for the white-headed sea eagle, the other 3 were all peak-level explorers. Splash! A big crocodile came out of the water, which was hundreds of meters long. Puff, 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 puff. The crocodile trembled all over, and thousands of seeds scattered on the surface of the sea. The void cracks were torn open one after another. A total of 6 explorers from the Sky Clan came. A one-horned rhinoceros stepped over from the void, creating ripples with each step. At that moment, everyone on the Avenger was stunned. Jia Wuxing opened his mouth wide. Is this the reinforcements that General Han asked for? F***CK. The rough men were all dumbfounded. Isn't this reinforcement a bit too powerful? EU was also dumbfounded. At that moment, even she thought she was going to die and was about to self-destruct. She secretly regretted it. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have been so impatient. Who would have thought that? Han Fei came back in such a short time. He didn't escape. In EU's opinion, it was very likely that Han Fei could escape in this situation. Han Fei put on a smile and pretended to be surprised. "Oh right. Is this guy called Shimin Zhan?" As he spoke, Han Fei flipped his hand and took out a half-stone golem. Why a half-stone golem? Because Shimin Zhan's lower body was crushed, and his arms were torn off. "Third Grandpa!" Shimin Lai roared. "How dare you kill a member of the Shimin family? You're courting death." Han Fei tilted his head and looked at Shimin Lai. "Are you calling me stupid? I think you're a bit stupid. In the current situation, what's the big deal about killing an explorer from the Shimin family? What's the big deal about slaughtering your Shimin family?" Shimin Wuxing roared. "What do you mean by the 100,000 mountains? This is an internal affair of the human clan. Someone intends to disturb the peace of the human clan. Do you think the 100,000 mountains can interfere in this matter?" The crocodile opened its mouth wide. "I think Wang Han is a tough guy. What's wrong with him attacking the human clan? The old bull rumbled, Don't speak from such a high point of view. You can't represent the human clan. The one-horned rhinoceros stepped in the air. I only saw a group of explorers bullying a few children. The Sky Survey Golden Eagle's voice shook. An internal affair of the human clan? Do you know that Wang Han is the first disciple of the 4 venerables of the 100,000 mountains? Even if the venerables of your clan come out and ask him, do you dare to kill him? Other than Shiman Linglan, everyone else sucked in a cold breath. Jiao Wuxing and the others stared at Han Fei in shock. The first disciple of the 4 venerables of the 100,000 mountains? Third night. Asking for votes. My liver is dying. I'll continue with the 2-in-1 tomorrow. I have something to do today. End of this chapter.